Hey Snake, did you know Metal Gear Solid 2 is a masterpiece?
How do you know that? Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
Well, after playing the game, reading the book, watching the documentary, watching the document of Metal Gear Solid 2, and playing Substance, let's just say I know from experience.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly. So who better to do an insanely deep-diving retrospective about this memetic, prophetic Hideo Kojima gem of a video game?
We're counting on you.
What's up, fellow porters, and welcome back to Fragile Bridges. I'm your porter with the goods, Marcus, back keeping the dark reaches of the Mediaverse connected, from the past to the present, and the mainstream to the obscure. In our subject today, Metal Gear Solid 2 certainly encapsulates every aspect of that opening phrase. From its very mixed fan reception in 2001 to its ascension 19 years later of being considered an underappreciated gem, and how its themes, while obscure at release, now have a widely shared view of being an unheeded prophecy of our modern times. For years, calling Metal Gear Solid 2 a masterpiece would have been quite divisive, as a large number of Metal Gear Solid fans thought it was a pretentious, self-indulgent, overly verbose and convoluted story that betrayed the fans by making one of the most controversial character switches in gaming to that point. But as time goes by, hindsight increases, and yes, the game can be a bit too in love with its own ideas to care about the player's entertainment, and it is filled with over-bloated verbosity, but now Metal Gear Solid 2 is almost unanimously praised for its absurd surrealist story and all too clairvoyant vision of a shady, misleading, oppressive digital age. It's deemed by most as an existential, experiential masterpiece. And you're damn right it is. This is a retrospective built on all the ambitious concepts, socio-political themes, pop culture homages, and love that went into this game. It's also, of course, a lot of my own personal experiences, crazy fan theory conjuring, and conclusions regarding Metal Gear Solid 2's characters, story, memetic impact, and oh so real relevance of its societal message, which some of you could end up seeing as totally legit, or
the whim of a madman.
But I feel like I'm the guy you want doing this video, because as someone who played Metal Gear Solid 2 in 2001 at age 14 and wasn't the least bit interested in the twist, just wanting to shoot people in the face and have my sword fight, to 19 years later being someone who views the gameplay as an afterthought due to muscle memory, because what I really want to enjoy is the story, characters, and themes I've grown to love so much, and just melt into the beautiful insanity of this world Hideo Kojima created. Yeah, let's just say I've gone full Rust Cole True Detective on Metal Gear Solid 2.
Just want you to stop saying odd shit like you smell a psycho's fear.
Given how long it's taken for me to reconcile my nature, I can't figure I'd forgo it on your account.
I gotta give a shout out to Steak Bentley, who created the amazing Metal Gear Solid 4 Was a Mistake, because his incredible video is what inspired this insane video. If you're a Metal Gear Solid 2 fan, I hope this does it justice for you and your memories, but that I'm also able to illuminate a new perspective on the game and its themes for you. Whether or not you're a fan though, I really just hope this video is entertaining and informative. By the way, this is your spoiler warning for Metal Gear Solid 2 because we are going to be talking about everything. It's also your warning for partial spoilers to MGS 1, 3, 4, 5, Rising, and also the Escape from New York and LA movies. Before we talk about the game, let's look at the hype and development around Metal Gear Solid 2. Metal Gear Solid 1 was a surprise blockbuster hit on the PlayStation 1 console in 1998, blowing the socks off players with a storyline that interwove spies, ninjas, giant robots, anime-style dialogue, badass cutscenes, pulse-pounding boss fights, and amazing set pieces. It was perfect, and still considered one of the greatest, if not the greatest game of all time. So naturally a sequel was in order, and with the massive success of MGS1, MGS2 was granted a much larger budget, and creator Hideo Kojima and his team would need every penny and even pennies they didn't have to make what was supposed to be Kojima's Metal Gear swan song come true, especially since it would be featured on the more powerful new PlayStation 2. Going off current terminology, Metal Gear Solid 2 is by all accounts a AAA title, and its production values, which were premiered in an E3 2000 trailer, were unlike anything seen in gaming to date. The graphics, the music, the lighting, everything was jaw-dropping, and from the moment that trailer showed, Metal Gear Solid 2 became one of the most hyped games leading to its release. Magazines and websites dissected every technical aspect of the trailer like Game of Thrones previews, and fans were only left to speculate on what type of insane story we would be in for because the trailers didn't glean much, and lips were kept sealed during production. Like all his games, Kojima wrote and directed Metal Gear Solid 2, but a lot of its concepts and innovative mechanics can be attributed to his amazing staff whom he had write ideas in a suggestion book daily, the best ideas of course making it into the game. Kojima had his mainstays like character and mech designer Yoji Shinkawa and co-writer Tomokazu Fukushima, who some call the true genius behind Metal Gear Solids 1, 2, and 3, attributing the codec called dialogue where a large portion of the game's story takes place to him. However, this is partially true. In a recent article from TheSnakeSoup, it's been revealed that Fukushima, along with the task of setting justification, basically why stuff be the way it be and how it's possible to exist like this, he also wrote the optional codec calls, which is some of the quirkiest and funniest parts of the game.
This reminds me of when we first met.
I was the one inside the locker that time. We're equal now, huh?
Not unless I wet my pants.
That's a low blow, Snake.
But this means that Kojima did write all the crazy psychotic dialogue and twists we came to love, but it makes his later work seem more odd because they have such a lack of restraint compared to the first 3 games, but maybe that was Fukushima's true gift to the series, helping restrain Kojima to some degree. But if you were someone wondering what he actually brought to the story side of things, there it is.
Nice work.
On the voice acting front, actor David Hayter would reprise his role as beloved character Solid Snake, and a good majority of the original game's cast would be returning as well, which was a positive sign since Metal Gear Solid 1's voice acting was superb. Looking back, that's something that can be said for almost all the Metal Gear Solid games. As for the musical element, having a larger budget, Kojima wanted a more cinematic sounding soundtrack and managed to recruit Hollywood composer Harry Gregson Williams to work with video game composer Noriko Hibno on the score for Metal Gear Solid 2. They absolutely killed it with one of the most atmospheric and cool sounding spy soundtracks ever made. It's one of my all-time favorite OSTs. However, one of the lesser mentioned and more important team members during development was military advisor Motosato Mori, whose expert consultation and in-depth lectures, which put the dev team in the tactical mindset of a soldier through simulated exercises in the office, helped lead to the truly authentic military action feel Metal Gear Solid 2 emanated. Players' first chance to experience this was in early 2001 when a demo for Metal Gear Solid 2 was released with another Konami title, Zone of the Enders. The demo allowed you to play up through the game's first boss, but offered so much promise as we saw the graphics and attention to detail from the trailers weren't bullshit. They were the real deal. The demo did one other thing. It made players go, "Oh my god, this is so awesome, I can't wait to play the rest of this game as Snake." Fast forward 6 months to November 13, 2001 and the release of Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty. I think that's a perfect jumping off point for us. Pun totally intended. But with that, it's time for what we all came here for. It all begins with this elaborate cinematic montage that mostly shows all the cool badass clips we had seen in E3 trailers up to now. We get some snippets of the new characters who all look par for the course in terms of the bizarre stylishness you'd expect from Yoji Shinkawa, and from the looks of it, we'll be having a new sidekick too. Usually you don't end a montage like that on the shot of a sidekick. That's weird. We move past the awesome looking home screen and we're immediately given a choice here of playing the tank or plant, or just playing each individually. Well, we're here for the full experience, so tank or plant it is. The screen goes black and immediately we hear the recognizable voice of our beloved Solid Snake.
The Hudson River, 2 years ago.
Giving us some info about going after a new Metal Gear. We fade into what I still think is one of the coolest and most cinematic intros to a video game ever. We're not sneaking through underground passages in Arctic tundra anymore. We're here in New York overlooking the Hudson River on a dark and stormy night. Everything about this intro is incredible. The music and disorienting lights and the traffic along with our hooded figure creating a mood of tension and anticipation. The cloak drops to reveal a stealth figure who we totally know is Snake, and he's about to make a breathtaking freefall from the George Washington Bridge. Now, the Halo jump in Metal Gear Solid 3 and even the War Has Changed intro to Metal Gear Solid 4 served as stylish openings to their respective games, but I don't think either quite captured this Hollywood blockbuster feel of the tanker infiltration, in part because those intros were interrupted by 15-minute cutscenes that broke up the action and ruined the immersion before Snake was even revealed. Also because Metal Gear Solid 2 is the most realistic opening of these games, because it used real locations like the Hudson River and George Washington Bridge. It just gives the scene an extra feel of tangibility. Snake has a bit of a turbulent landing, but it ends up giving him the most badass lightning-laced entrance since the Terminator movies.
Hey, buddy, did you just see a real bright light?
We pan out to see Revolver Ocelot, whom we all expected to return after being the lone survivor of Foxhound in Metal Gear Solid 1, and he's shown very early on here with a new hand.
What? My hand!
But we'll be talking about his hand and motivations throughout this video. We cut back to Snake and the title appears, Metal Gear Solid 2. Sons of Liberty.
Kept you waiting, huh?
We shimmy behind some crates, hop on the Kodak, and get the lowdown on our mission from Otacon. That's right, our anime-obsessed broham from Metal Gear Solid 1 is back with us for round 2. He talks about how we're no longer working for the military, which I guess explains why our old radio crew from Metal Gear Solid 1 isn't here, and the only person we get an update on is Mei Ling. Nothing about Meryl, Naomi, or the Colonel, but whatever, I'm here for Snake and Otacon. Turns out the dynamic duo have spent the past 2 years since Shadow Moses destroying numerous Metal Gears around the globe, working as a UN-recognized non-profit group.
Recognized, but still fringe, Otacon.
That's right, we're doing the Lord's work, eradicating Metal Gears from sea to shining sea, and we're here on this big boat to provide proof of a new one that's set to wipe the floor with the rest.
Looks like we're not the only ones after Metal Gear tonight.
This scene of the commandos taking over the ship, again just cinematically speaking, fantastic, but it's also a preview of how the enemies work as a unit in this game. And showing them kill the crew members lets you know that this new batch of enemy troops are more menacing than the ones from Metal Gear Solid 1, who for the most part were just dudes manning their posts who were possessed by Psycho Mantis into working for Foxhound, so they weren't even really like bad guys, I guess. After about 15 minutes of cutscenes and codec, the game finally lets you play, and one of the things that can't be denied is that when this game came out in 2001, the graphics were mind-boggling. This game was and is still beautiful. You got the stormy atmosphere outside the tanker, and not just the visuals either. The game sounds amazing. You feel like you're actually in this rainstorm and just want to find a way inside. Unlike Metal Gear Solid 1, we start with a gun this time around, but it's a tranquilizer gun, which Kojima introduced to help push his views on non-violence, and I actually thought was a pretty cool innovative addition to the series that created a long-distance non-lethal alternative in games going forward, rewarding players with higher endgame ranks for non-lethal runs. And those, as Kojima states, show a true mastery of the game. Now, I've attempted a couple no-kill runs, but for as many times as I've played Metal Gear Solid 2, I am no master. The first portion of the tanker chapter acts as a tutorial, letting you learn the hinky new controls until they become intuitive mechanics like hanging mode, corner peeking, and first-person shooting, while being able to see some of the nuanced details like how guards notice wet footsteps, or are able to sense you even when you're just outside their field of vision. And if you enter alert mode, they will screw up your day because they actually work together as a tactical unit in this game, and they have you beat in the armament category this go around. There are still some glitches that can be quite hilarious, but for the most part the AI was the most realistic and responsive for its time. One of the coolest new mechanics and a jaw-dropping moment is the first time you knock a guard out, drag his body to a locker and hide him in there. You're literally shoving dudes into lockers. This is awesome. Skulking around the tanker a bit, you notice how detailed everything is on this ship. You can break the bottles, the ice melts in real time, you can shoot the fruit. It's stuff that seems goofy to have, but it creates a truly immersive world and shows how much work went into this game. It is no wonder it has always been considered a technical achievement in gaming. We make it to the control room where we spot a female enemy soldier, learning her name is Olga Gerlukovich and that she is with child. Good thing we got the trank gun so we don't have to become Snake the baby killer. We arrive at a scene that's supposed to be reminiscent of when Snake and Meryl met in Metal Gear Solid 1, but Olga is far more experienced and formidable than Meryl was.
メリルとイメージでダブらせて登場は一瞬ためらいますよね。オルガを見た瞬間にマーレって言うんですけども、その辺の駆け引きが、両方とも、いわゆる戦闘のプロっていうのを、ユーザーの、時代劇とか、何でしょう西部劇ですかね。対峙してて、銃から手を離して、風が流れてて一瞬時間が止まるそういう感覚
Not too shabby, is it? New York, I mean. and that brings our tour to its conclusion.
This fight's relatively easy. Just take cover behind the crates, wait for her to post up, and pick her off when you have the chance. She'll try to mess up your aim by shining the light in your eyes and taking cover behind a flailing tarp, but it doesn't do much to stop you. It's a good boss battle to kick things off, and I guess for comparison's sake, it's this game's version of the Revolver Ocelot battle. You knock her out, take her gun, then a surveillance drone shows up. Not gonna lie, us holding a gun over an unconscious pregnant woman? Not a good look. Otacon tells us who we're dealing with, a Russian PMC run by Sergei Gurlukovich, a name we know from Metal Gear Solid 1 as one of Ocelot's allies. Otacon also fesses up that he didn't get this Metal Gear info himself and took an anonymous tip, which means we know shit's gonna hit the fan. We explore the outside for a quick minute, and it's a shame the outside portions of the ship weren't utilized more because it's the most impressive looking environment in the tanker chapter. You backtrack through the decks and make it to the engine room when you see the shadow of...
Raven?
That's right, Vulcan Raven. I remember playing this for the first time, having my mind blown because we remember what happened the last time Raven and Snake met. You turn the corner and you see that it's a Raven doll, and if you shoot it, it shoots these little pebbles and makes this funny noise. But I love this part of the game because it's a fun callback that shows how great the shadow effects in this game are, and because it totally ruins this next moment. Oh my god. I've heard some fans say they think these types of callbacks are stupid to have, which I find funny because this type of cheeky stuff is only in here to shout out the fans. You had the Raven doll in Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 3, which takes place in 1963, had a scientist with models of Metal Gear Ray in a Zone of the Enders mech, and then you have the Psycho Mantis and Sorrow dolls in Metal Gear Solid 4. Yes, they're wacky callbacks that can also be continuity breaking and create the most obvious question of who in this Metal Gear Solid world made these fucking things, but it's Kojima, it's Metal Gear, just roll with it. The next part, making your way through the engine room and holds, is your standard Metal Gear Solid environments like the nuclear storage facility. It's an area with an industrial look, plenty of sneaking points to avoid detection, and like everything else so far, the lighting, sound, and detail of these areas is insane. We get, I guess, a semi-boss fight, but it's just a bunch of enemy commandos flooding the hallway. It's basically the shootout from when you first meet Meryl in Metal Gear Solid 1, or the elevator shootout from Metal Gear Solid 1, or the other elevator shootout from Metal Gear Solid 1, or the... I'm just kidding. Anyway, it's done much better with the insane play of light and shadow from the guns, and even being able to shoot steam pipes to inflict damage. It's a quick, fun set piece, but unfortunately, it's the last real action segment of the tanker chapter. Ocelot appears, only being up to his usual shady, double-crossing ways. This last section of the tanker, we're in for some straight up stealth that has a very VR sneaking mission feel, with the time limit, weapons restriction, and straight up game over if you're spotted. You have to take 4 photos of the new Metal Gear, and you have 7 minutes to do it before the Commandant finishes his speech. All in all, this segment's pretty good, and I like that it does give you multiple routes you can take to reach your goal. I also find it hilarious that no one notices Snake just standing in the middle of this crowded room taking pictures of Metal Gear, but whatever. You upload the photos to Otacon, and if you were a scamp and took all sorts of random shots, you get some interesting reacts from him. Some he'll admonish you for.
This is not what we came for. I can't believe you're clowning around at a time like this.
And others will just make him horny.
I'll just make a backup of this one.
But that concludes the actual playing part of the tanker, so get out your popcorn because it's time for a standard Metal Gear Solid 15 to 20 minute cutscene. This next part's pretty awesome, and stupid, and where Ocelot steps into his own as our main villain.
Excellent speech, my friend.
Who the?
Gift of the silver tongue. They say it's the mark of a good officer. And of a liar.
Here he takes the stage from the Commandant and just can't help but preen, letting the Marines know that the ship's wired with Semtex and that he's the man in charge. Ocelot's here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and he's damn sure out of bubblegum. To his allies' surprise, he's not the least bit interested in reviving Mother Russia, which we already figured since he was a duplicitous bastard working undercover for the President in the last game. But when asked his plans for Metal Gear, he says he's taking it back.
Yes, returned to the Patriots.
The Lale Lule Lo! The Lale Lule Lo! The Lale Lule Lo!
Oh yes, the Lolly Lule Lo. This was the line of dialogue that collectively made the fanbase laugh their asses off, but would become so integral to the rest of the series, and of course it started a question that would pave the road to retcon hell in future games: who are the Patriots, and what the fuck is the Lolly Lule Lo? But there's no time to think about that now, because Ocelot goes Lee Van Cleef on everyone.
Stop!
Yeah, he's pretty fucking awesome. But then comes one of the most absurd plot lines and twists of this entire series. Ocelot prepares to hop in Metal Gear Ray when...
It's been a while, brother.
Liquid?
The price of physical prodigy. Few more years and you'll be another dead clone of the old man. Big Boss was in his late 50s when they created his copies. But I live on through this arm!
Okay, I'm fucking dying. Yeah, I don't think that's how cloning works, but I'm also pretty sure that if I died and you transplanted my arm onto someone else, that my consciousness wouldn't transfer over to them too. Or would it? It just takes the cake on stupid and weird and makes Ocelot into the ludicrous character we would come to know as Liquid Ocelot, which there's an explanation for, but we're not ready for that yet, and I have a lot to say about it. Liquid and Solid Snake stare down each other once again, and then it happens. So Liquid Ocelot hops in Ray and kills everyone. Ray does its JoJo pose. Ocelot has another shady phone call with the president, leaving us unsure of his actual motivations, which seems to be a constant theme of the franchise. Snake is dead? Otacon gives the game over Snake, and we fade to black. End of the Tanker chapter. Overall, I give it an A. The cinematics are incredible, and for an intro, the story already has plenty of mystery and intrigue. Just overall, aesthetically, this game is the shit. As a standalone chapter though, I felt like it was maybe one insane set piece short of being perfect. Sadly, there was an epic section that would have been awesome to play, but was cut in the end.
ですけども、スネークが濁流に追われるシーンっていうのがあったと思うんですけども、あれは最終的に、ボツになりました。技術的にはできたんですけども、ゲーム的に非常に淡白なものになってしまったというのがあります。逃げるだけで、濁流に捕まると、ゲームオーバーになってしまうというこ ことで、それは泣く泣くというか、一番最後ですけど。
While I think a scene like that would have put the tanker over the top, it's still an amazing chapter and super replayable. I think it's important to note, going back to the chapter selection of tanker and plant, that Kojima initially had two scenarios for the game. One involving a confined mobile space, which would be the tanker, and a second immobile confined area, much like Shadow Moses. But when they realized the tanker chapter would be too short, they kept both concepts. The second concept, known only as the plant, was the unknown for players because there was no demo, no footage, no screenshots of the environment. Nobody knew what to expect from the plant chapter. But as we all know now, this is where we take our red pills and jump down the rabbit hole. In order to properly navigate through the big shell, I need to divulge a partial twist that happens late in the game to provide context for everything going on prior, especially since Metal Gear Solid 2's story is told in vague breadcrumbs that can easily be missed in the massive dialogue and text it throws at you. If you've played Metal Gear Solid 2, you'll be familiar with this part, and if not, it still won't ruin things. It may just make the preceding events easier to understand.
What are you talking about?
S3 stands for Solid Snake Simulation. It's a development program to artificially reproduce Solid Snake, the perfect warrior.
Yeah, let's get that out of the way. The VR training you've undergone prior to this mission is part of a simulation program called the S3, an attempt to create Solid Snake's memetic successor through VR, allowing a soldier to experience Snake's experiences and hone the same sort of stealth and combat skill set as the legendary Foxhound Commando. There's a lot more to this plot point and theme, and we'll come back to that plenty throughout the video, but now that I've imparted that little massive tidbit, we can begin our descent into madness. You should also know I'll be approaching the big shell from two perspectives. One is the doe-eyed 14-year-old first playing through this game, unsure of what the hell is going on, but hey, we can do flips now. And two from a more patient and wise, but still insane 33-year-old view that loves this game enough to make fun of all the dumb shit, but is willing to delve deeper into the themes, concepts, philosophies, and inspirations behind it. You've been warned. It's been 2 years since the tanker incident, and we're back where it all happened, the Verrazano Bridge. We get a briefing of the situation from Colonel Campbell, our less than trustworthy mission commander from Metal Gear Solid 1, despite him not being involved or even mentioned in the tanker chapter. Who knows, maybe he got bored and joined Snake and Otacon's non-profit group. You're told a waste disposal facility known as the Big Shell was erected at the site of the incident to control the oil spill, even though we know there was no oil spill. Clearly something's amiss. Apparently the facility's been overrun by terrorists who've taken the president and others hostage, demanding $30 billion in ransom.
We hold the world ransom for $100 billion.
Your mission is to infiltrate the Big Shell, save the president and the hostages, along with neutralizing the terrorist threat. All par for the course Metal Gear Solid objectives. As you're hearing this conversation, it shows Snake infiltrating the plant, and your first thoughts are, either Snake hit the keto diet hard, or this is a different character. Well, looks like we're a different character, no doubt, as our name is immediately changed from Snake to Raiden. What the hell is going on here? Where is my Solid Snake? Oh, there's my Solid Snake. Wait, no, don't go, come back, I just want to be you! Snake does the dirty work for you and knocks out the guards leading to the elevator. Then you find out about the new radar system that only becomes available once you log into a building's node.
Did you say nerd?
Not nerd, node.
Oh.
By giving yourself some hardcore static shock.
I am lightning. The rain transformed.
Oh my god, can I play the game please? The opening of the plant chapter beats you to death with codec calls. Oh yeah, along with Colonel Campbell, Raiden, or Jack's girlfriend Rose, is our mailing data analyst replacement, and boy oh boy, a dysfunctional romantic relationship is certainly a fun side story to endure, isn't it, gang? Now, Raiden's VR training, which is very important to the main story, is mentioned in passing frequently early on in these codec calls, but because it's mixed in with this re-tutorial, it's easy to just skip past because you probably feel there's an excessively unnecessary amount of hand-holding in the plant's beginning, but it is here for story purposes that definitely aren't apparent on a first playthrough. The initial reaction is, yeah, VR training, blah blah blah. Aside from the node instructions, these codec tutorials really slow down the plant's beginning, especially since there's not many mechanics mentioned that we didn't already play with in the tanker. And especially since we've now sat through about 20 some odd minutes of cutscenes and codec going back to the end of the tanker chapter. The game finally allows you to play for like, I don't know, 5 seconds. Then you take the service elevator, and like Metal Gear Solid 1, this is the big reveal moment. Our new character Raiden takes off his mask and he kind of looks cool, like in an anime kind of way, but oh my god, is that guy liner he has on? Oh boy.
話があって、その時に美少年を出そうっていうのが出てきたんですけど、監督が美少年やって言ってなんか最初冗談。
When people say Metal Gear Solid 2 was a divisive game, they don't mean the scores because it received plenty of love from critics who gave it 9s and 10s across the board. It was the unknown fact that we wouldn't be playing as established series protagonist Solid Snake that rubbed a lot of fans the wrong way. Still, most thought when you first took control of Raiden that this would just be a change of pace section, breaking things up and just messing with us. Then we get back to being Snake, right? But no. We're riding with Raiden the rest of the way, even though for 2 years trailers and the demo had shown nothing but Solid Snake and gave no hint of a character change occurring. I think it's fascinating to revisit such a controversial character change after seeing how that decision in The Last of Us 2 has caused a massive divide in its fanbase. I also think Metal Gear Solid 2 would have received the same kind of lambasting if it were released now in the age of internet toxicity. Like yeah, nowadays Raiden is a fan favorite in the Metal Gear Solid universe after paying his dues.
He's already dead.
You changed the future. You've created a time paradox.
And undergoing some major changes. Let's just be honest, people love him because pretty much he's Gray Fox now. But when he first showed up, gamers didn't think he was even qualified enough to hold Snake's jockstrap, let alone be our main character. Internet forums painted a picture of angry fans who felt like Hideo Kojima and the publisher Konami had falsely advertised the game because Raiden had never been mentioned up to the release, and reviewers weren't innocent either because most completely danced around the topic of Raiden. Was this done for the sake of artistic integrity? Yes. Was it also a little shady? Yes. But fans were honestly just pissed that they weren't able to play as Snake, and I could see why, especially since Raiden had the whiny voice.
Colonel, I've located the node, but it's under heavy surveillance. I can't get in any closer.
And the very effeminate androgynous look, which was on purpose to draw more female players, but I also feel it was a way of saying anyone, male or female, could be Raiden. Keep that in mind for later. Personally, I didn't mind Raiden's look, probably because at 14 my idea of macho badasses were the ultra metrosexual mech pilots of Gundam Wing. Oh yeah, listen to this violin duet scene. It's so fucking edgy. Once the lid was off the whole Raiden secret, some of the concept art was released, and what hooked me was Raiden had a sword. That was it for me. This dude has a sword? I am fucking down. We'll talk about Raiden's overall legacy in the franchise at the end of this video, but while we're on the subject of things kept under wraps until release, let's discuss the Big Shell environment, or rather, its struts. Remember that hardcore static shock nerd node to get your radar working? Well, you have to do that in every strut from A through F, so until you log into the nodes, you're going into every building blind. It can feel daunting in a couple of them, but I think it's a cool little quirk to add and forces you to use first person and some of the new mechanics to navigate the areas. Or if you know the M9 location, you can grab that and just tranquilize your way from strut to strut like I do. I absolutely love the amount of detail in the Big Shell, and just like the tanker, nothing was designed without purpose. Yes, there's still shootable fruit, but even the hand dryers in the bathrooms work. Like, these are functional restrooms, and they look really nice. You can even see your reflection in the floor. Sure, the stall toilets don't work, but hey, Kojima would revolutionize shitting in a video game 18 years later in Death Stranding. Yeah, apparently bathrooms are a big deal for Kojima games. Sadly, I think the Big Shell was just too big for its own good. I get wanting an environment the expanse of Shadow Moses from the first game, but what made those environments so special was the variety. One minute you're on a comm tower rooftop fighting a helicopter, the next in a snowstorm and a sniper duel, and then sneaking through a smelting furnace. And each area, despite how quick you were in it, had its own personality. The Big Shell could have done this, and I think struts A, E, and F have a decent amount to offer, but the other three struts are just creating a setting for one or two very brief cutscenes, and that's about all. Don't get me wrong, these areas are still gorgeous and fleshed out, but offer little to the overall story, and with the outdoor areas looking the same aside from the bridge design and guard routes, it just feels sterile, I guess. I don't know how this could have been remedied, maybe limiting the game to struts A, E, and F and utilizing them at the C level, which we never got to explore, would have given them a more expansive feel, but it still doesn't take away from the big shell being a fun tactical espionage playground to use to just mess with the guards. But that's enough of me complaining about space usage. This isn't HGTV, this is Metal Gear Solid 2. Thanks for indulging my insanity, guys. Just letting you know, we're going to be taking a fair amount of detours in the early going of the big shell, but I promise it's going to help us zoom through the midsection of this game. Where were we? Oh yeah, playing the game. You do the sneaky sneak from strut A to strut B. Look at us, strutting our stuff, for like 10 seconds. When this happens, bloody hallway, full of dead soldiers? Guess we're doing that again. Oh, it's a vampire, and his name is Vamp. Honestly, when it comes to Kojima, who would eventually have characters like Die Hardman and Hot Coldman, should we really be surprised that the vampire's name was Vamp? Give Kojima that. He spells out exactly what a character is about a lot of the times with these names. Back to Vamp. This is where Raiden gets to win us over. You have this vampire mercenary who just killed an entire team of Navy SEALs like nothing, but Raiden is going to be the dude who's badass enough to put up a fight and survive. No, maybe we will get to play as Snake. Get down! Yes, we all know it's Snake, and yes, this is also why Raiden didn't get to be a fan favorite for a while. Snake saving Raiden's ass in a badass way that you wish Raiden was doing himself. It just makes the player go, why am I such a bitch, and god, Snake is such a badass, why can't I just be Snake? Snake freaks out Vamp for some reason and he scampers off into the rafters. Now we get the first face-to-face meeting between Raiden and Snake. This scene holds a lot of significance to both characters going forward in the game and series. So let's set up camp for a moment and dissect everything happening. Let's start with Kojima's blatant nod to Solid Snake's design resembling John Carpenter's iconic movie character Snake Pliskin. Metal Gear Solid 3 would take things to their ultimate conclusion, giving Big Boss the signature eye patch that would complete the look, but there is an optional codec call between Raiden and Snake later in this game where Snake reveals that the name Iroquois means snake in the Algonquin language. So literally Solid Snake's pseudonym in Metal Gear Solid 2 is Snake Pliskin, and that's pretty fucking cool. Going deeper than just the translation of Iroquois, it also refers to a historic Native American confederacy that was known for taking people into their tribe as a result of warfare and displacement. Making that connection, this essentially is Snake bringing Raiden into his tribe, and he starts by giving him shit about his VR training, curmudgeonly scoffing at Raiden's lack of real-world experience.
Any field experience?
No, not really.
So this is your first.
I've had extensive training, the kind that's indistinguishable from the real thing.
Like what?
Sneaking mission 60, weapons 80, advanced...
VR, huh?
But realistic in every way.
A virtual grunt of the digital age, that's just great.
That's far more effective than live exercises.
You don't get injured in VR, do you? Every year a few soldiers die in field exercises.
There's pain sensation in VR and even a sense of reality and urgency. The only difference is it isn't actually happening.
That's the way they want you to think, to remove you from the fear that goes with battle situations. War is a video game. What better way to raise the ultimate soldier?
That phrase, war is a video game, speaks volumes not just about the S3 plan of training soldiers through VR to become effective Solid Snake replacements, but to us the player being shaped into virtual soldiers by the violent military-style war games we've played growing up. This theme of gamers being shaped into elite military tools through the games we love along with reality perception is a concept Kojima would dabble with through Metal Gear Solid 4, but this is an effective way of dipping our toes in before totally cannonballing into it later on. Snake lights up and gives us a breakdown on this game's terrorist group known as Dead Cell, a former military training unit that would carry out terrorist attacks to put VR-trained soldiers to the test of real-world field operations to gauge VR's effectiveness. So I guess it makes sense to have the VR-trained soldier up against the VR-training terrorists. But Dead Cell is the beginning of a recurring theme for Kojima, trying to recreate Metal Gear Solid 1's Foxhound unit, and not quite being able to hold a candle to it. In MGS1 you had this interesting, well fleshed out group of Special Force nutjobs who each had a particular set of skills, and they all put up a good fight. Every boss excluding Ocelotta you fought at least twice. Going forward, each game's squad, Dead Cell and Metal Gear Solid 2, the Cobra unit in MGS3, and the B&B Corps in 4 are all weaker versions of the original Foxhound group. Not nearly as fleshed out, and in most cases, not nearly as difficult fight-wise. But out of Metal Gear Solid 2, 3, and 4, 2 is the last time the villains really had a solid motivation for their actions and felt compelled to lay out those plans pre-fight before you go deep 6 on them. It's also strange that here, Snake tells Raiden Solid Snake died on the tanker 2 years ago and that he's the one that sunk it. I get the perception of being dead is better for Snake and Otacon since they are wanted terrorists, but it seems odd that he would just flat out own sinking the tanker and sullying his own name. He also tells Raiden the traps of idolizing legends and the thin line between legends and madmen, which we'd find out in later games was a very appropriate analogy for Big Boss. Snake then hands Raiden his SIGs and a SOCOM in what is a major passing of the torch moment. Snake giving Raiden his cigarettes is significant of him passing on his individualist rebellious spirit. In Metal Gear Solid 1, smokes are the one thing Snake smuggled along on the mission, and he was constantly admonished for it, but basically told everyone to piss off because SIGs are something Snake has had in every single Metal Gear game, and it's part of what makes Snake, well, Snake. The SOCOM is a bit more obvious as it's the gun we associate with Solid Snake and the one he obtained at the beginning of Metal Gear Solid 1. It's like Kojima and Pliskin's way of telling the player, the real Solid Snake is going to sit this one out, you're no longer helpless though, now it's your turn to become a new Snake of sorts. Before we leave Pliskin, he gives us a codec frequency, and like everything else so far, it's a callback to Metal Gear Solid 1, because he's using the same frequency as Snake's former mentor, Master Miller, which of course we found out was actually Liquid disguised as Miller. So the frequency serves two references, one that Pliskin is not exactly who he says he is, and two, that Snake is now Raiden's Miller, taking him under his wing to show him the ropes of combat philosophy, and more importantly, life philosophy. Yeah, I think that's what it means. Anyways, now that we've been turned loose, we have another long-winded codec call with Rose about what tomorrow is. This conversation is brought up in multiple codec calls, interspersed with romantic talk and Rose just trying to pep up Jack along the way. Oh, and yes, our romantic couple being named Jack and Rose in a game that has a giant tanker capsize is totally a Titanic reference, and again, Kojima has just flat out acknowledged that. But the whole what is tomorrow thing is like a long joke that is meant only for Kojima as it pertains to an event in his personal love life. Now I do love the amount of personal touch Hideo Kojima adds to his games, but this is one of those examples of him being a little too in love with his own ideas to a point he doesn't care if people understand it. But who am I to be throwing stones as I'm making this totally self-indulgent retrospective about Kojima's most self-indulgent game? Alright, let's mosey. It's time to go to Struts. We get to take about 5 steps this time before... it's time for another cutscene. I won't lie, it's very frustrating to have the gameplay broken up so frequently by cutscenes early on, but I can't be mad because they look too damn good.
This is impossible. Nothing will hit her.
Is she the one they call Fortune? Don't let them take the president! Ready grenades!
A dud!
We're introduced to a woman named Fortune with a big-ass railgun who can't die and of course wants to because I guess being unkillable just makes you hate life sometimes. Vamp and Fortune are kinda like extensions of Grey Fox, can't be killed, seeking respite in a death they can't obtain. Also, Fortune's whole attitude just sorta reminds me of the Happy Time Harry doll from Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Oh yeah? You got what it takes, man? Huh? Do you? Pull the trigger. Pull it! Pull it! Now!
You know, Happy Time, just being around you kinda makes me wanna die.
I mean, yeah, she has other motivations, even though those are still flawed, but more understandable. But this scene is gorgeous, and feels very Cowboy Bebop CU Space Cowboyish. Understandably, Raiden kinda starts to lose his shit at this point.
Who are they? Dead Cell, I mean. They couldn't hit her no matter how hard they tried. And that vampire, too, it's like being in a nightmare you can't wake up from.
Pause right here. After that particular line, I'd like to take a moment to talk about one of the lesser discussed influences on Hideo Kojima when it comes to Metal Gear Solid 2's story and themes, and that would be Kobo Abe's novel, The Kangaroo Notebook, which is one of the most surreal absurdist books I've ever read, and it's insanely entertaining. But I do remember initially reading its synopsis and going, yeah, that kinda sums up the Raiden experience. Hooked to a penile catheter and an IV bottle, the narrator begins a harrowing journey on his hospital bed through the underworld that seems to lie beneath the city streets. Here he seeks not so much health as simple explanations for what is happening to him and the strange people he meets. Abusive ferrymen, waif-like child demons, vampire nurses, and a chiropractor who runs a karate school and has a side job carrying out euthanasia procedures. Sure, Raiden may not be hooked up to a penile catheter on an amphibious hospital bed, but the strange encounters with seemingly supernatural beings and just absurd circumstances seem to be heavily inspired by Abe's novel. While the book can be a wild ride that's difficult to follow at times, its examination of the psychological suppressions of everyday life, skewed perspectives, and a narrator who passively does as told while simply seeking answers to what exactly is happening make it a crazy, haunting, but enjoyable read, and its influence can certainly be felt in the Big Shell chapter. People consider Metal Gear Solid 2 to be a postmodern classic, and if you look at the characteristics of postmodernism, that can't be denied. But I think absurdist surrealism is another apt description. Just my 2 cents. And throwing it out there, if you like crazy weird stories, and if you're an MGS fan, you definitely do, you should check out anything written by Kobo Abe.
You know what you're doing.
Cartwheel our way over to Struts C, and if you thought it was time to play the game, you're sorely mistaken. Oh hey, what's up, Snake? We meet a bomb disposal expert named Peter Stillman who says he trained one of the Dead Cell members named Fatman. Yep, Fatman. That's right. The guy's name is Fatman, and he's rigged the shell with explosives, but since you're here now, you can defuse them. It's another tutorial for what just end up being temporary mechanics, but hey, it's something different. Stillman continues to expo dump on how he showed Fatman's skills without teaching him ideology and that he created a monster he must destroy. It is sad and heartfelt, but there's been so much talking thus far that my attention span is fading fast, and I'm in need of caffeine and stimulation. Fortunately, this bomb disposal section is my favorite because it utilizes every strut on Shell 1 with the hide-and-go-seek objective, and it's the longest continuous gameplay we've had in the Big Shell so far. Some find it tedious, but I think it's a great side quest that took the cutscene shackles off and was actually something different from the original game. Metal Gear Solid 2 deviates in certain areas from its predecessor, and when it does, it's pretty phenomenal, and they tend to be the parts of the game people remember most because they stand out from the overlaps with Metal Gear Solid 1. And so you traipse your swishy ass around Shell 1, freezing bombs strut to strut. This section, like most set pieces in this game, loses its initial charm on replay runs only because the bomb locations don't change, but the first time you take on this mandatory side op, it really makes you work to find where they are since you have this general area on your radar to search. But this segment is a charming change of pace, and I think the only bomb disposal type mission done in the entire series. As you're wrapping things up, Stillman has an uneasy feeling that's confirmed once you deactivate the final bomb.
Damn! That was it!
What's going on?
Turns out freezing all the previous bombs ended up activating 2 massive bombs. Sneaky sneaky. You're then given a time limit and another sensor to find the big bomb and head back to Strut A where we first took the elevator. Stillman can't deactivate his bomb and bites the dust, and his death is a tragic end to his story, but becomes a footnote really quick because you're given no time to dwell on the man, which is kinda fucked, since like everyone gets a cinematic, impactful death scene in Metal Gear games, but I guess they can't all be winners. You follow the blip noise until you find the final bomb, then you mourn Stillman for like 3 seconds. Big sad. Campbell's like, condolences, blah blah blah, get back on the elevator, buddy. Back to the elevator, and it's time for a boss fight. Kinda. Yeah, Fortune in my opinion is the biggest squandering of a boss fight in the Metal Gear Solid series, and another moment that just makes Raiden look like a total flaccid snake. It's like, okay, she can't be hit by bullets, but in Metal Gear Solid 1, Psycho Mantis could dodge your bullets by reading your mind, and Gray Fox could deflect them with his sword, but it didn't stop you. Here you just hide. That's it. You literally curl up in a ball behind these crates waiting to die until the elevator shows up. I've actually never liked this part, and I think it could have been an interesting fight where you have to take out Fortune non-lethal with no weapons while hiding, taking cover and misdirecting her. No shit. And now Vamp's here too? Snake? Kid, you come get me? Luckily, he's not here for our punk ass. Apparently, Fatman still plans to blow the dome, and the rest of the terrorists are like, this fucking guy. Also, it's kind of funny how the bad guys are just talking shit about you while you're there, knowing there's nothing you can really do about it. But then...
Later, Vamp.
Now!
Score for Raiden. We found Vamp's weakness. Shooting him. Accidentally. Some fluke. Pure luck. Oh shit, he's still alive. We get another time limit to find a big-ass bomb on the heliport of Struts, but we're on our own this time. No more Stillman to help. Since the whole game has revolved around Raiden's VR training and he never completed disposal missions, you can almost view the initial baby bomb deactivations across Shell 1 as Raiden's VR disposal training. There was no time limit, and he had expert guidance every step of the way to ensure he didn't fail. Now is Dead Cell, or Fatman, testing his training without Stillman and putting his newly acquired skills to the test. But that's just how I see it. Don't look at me like that. We beat our feet over to the heliport, disable the big bomb, and... what on earth is that noise?
So you're the one. You're right on time, I see. I like a punctual man.
Is he Dead Cell?
I am Fatman. I am the greatest that humanity has to offer, and the worst. Can you hear it? Hear this rhythm? It's the rhythm of time and life. Don't you love this sound? I used to hang around department store clock counters.
Oh yes, Fatman. This guy is something else. You know, while the members of Dead Cell aren't as fleshed out as the Foxhound unit, they all seem to be a bit more vaudeville over the top, but in a strangely entertaining way. Fatman takes the cake, though, on over the top. For lack of a better description, he looks like Fat Marlon Brando in a bomb disposal suit on rollerblades drinking wine out of a crazy straw. Yeah, that's Fatman. He says his whole reason for agreeing to the Big Shell takeover was to create the most devastating explosion in history and besting Stillman in the process so he can leave his mark on the world and his name will ring out for generations to come. I've made some big leaps so far, and I appreciate you coming along for the bizarre adventure, and this may be where you go, oh yeah, this is just
the whim of a madman.
But Fatman is actually an analogy for memes. Hear me out. Memes in general are well-known references and ideas that people tack on their own personal aesthetic or signature to and send them out into the world. Some are much more influential than others and can even become a meme that overshadows the initial meme it referenced. Fatman embodies these sentiments. His mastery of bombs, along with his personal aesthetic signature, the cologne on his bombs, and his desire to be remembered through history as the Mad Bomber to surpass all Mad Bombers. The way we reference 9/11 and Oklahoma City for horrible terrorist bombing attacks is how Fatman wanted to be remembered. So yeah, Fatman is memes.
Laugh and grow fat. Let's move!
For those of you still watching, Fatman is also one of my favorite fights from the first two games, combining the bomb disposal element with managing an armed combatant. But like most Metal Gear Solid bosses, Fatman is a little too chatty and flamboyant for his own good, meaning you can just run up and combo his ass, opening him up for easy critical shots. It's not super tough, and it's Metal Gear Solid 2's version of the Vulcan Raven fight, but it is one of the more memorable fights in this game, in part because of the awesome boss battle theme Yell Dead Cell, and even though remix versions play during a couple of later boss fights, it's a song most fans associate with Fatman. It's also one of the only boss battles in this game that has a real level of variability because the bomb locations change every time you attempt this fight. After you shoot him in the face repeatedly, he rants more about his Mad Bomber legacy, telling you that there's one more bomb left for us to defuse and that it's close by. This is the part I think a lot of us screwed up the first time. I know I did. I searched all over the place for this bomb because who would have guessed he's sitting on the damn thing? I think you get so used to the bombs being hidden but in still semi-visible spots that having the guy literally sitting on top of the bomb when we didn't see him sit on top of the bomb as we watched him die was kinda a what the fuck dude moment. But the whole bomb disposal Fatman sequence we just played should really be appreciated because we're going to be beaten into submission once more with cutscenes and codec, and not much gameplay in between. Oh hey, look, a cyborg ninja. It's kinda sad that after Gray Fox being such a cool part of Metal Gear Solid 1 that there's so much weird crazy shit happening in this game that a cyborg ninja showing up is a total meh moment.
We said meh. M-E-H. Meh.
It's also a bummer that your first encounter with the ninja isn't a fight, but instead a verbose, cordial conversation. Apparently this very Russian robot ninja is working for the same shady guys as Ocelotta. And he's backing us up? Don't worry, things aren't going to make sense for a little while. But they do at least mention that Metal Gear is here, so rest assured we have a big bad murder mech fight to look forward to later on. The ninja, or Mr. X rather, tells us to find the man who's got the real info on what's going on because we don't know shit at this point.
You don't know yet!
That's right, we don't know yet. But to find the man with the info who's named Ames, we'll have to disguise ourselves as the enemy. And even though we're given the uniform, we still need an AKS-74U to blend in. Raiden freaks out and calls the Colonel, who is up to his usual, I have no idea what's going on, I don't have all the info myself shenanigans he pulled in Metal Gear Solid 1, and pretty much just tells you to do what the shifty cyborg ninja said. So I guess it's off to fetch quest an AK from the Strut F warehouse, then sprint across the bridge of trapdoors to the Shell 1 core. The disguise segment is another temporary mechanic that sets Metal Gear Solid 2 apart from the original, and it's one that was an interesting enough change of pace that it made returns in Metal Gear Solid 3 and 4 in slightly longer sections. But there is something nice about being able to blend in plain sight in a game that essentially wants you to remain invisible to the enemy. Here, as long as you avoid bumping into other guards, you'll go unnoticed, and it's pretty much a breeze. I guess this dude Ames has a pacemaker though, so we have to snag a directional mic first. This is one of my few gripes about this game, and yes, we're circling back to the whole strut usage discussion, because the equipment fetch quest you're sent on wouldn't seem like such a nuisance if the items we were retrieving were used for more than a minute of actual gameplay. This happens with a few items like the disposal spray, the directional mic, and even a decent amount of the weapons you acquire, but I really think the direct mic and some of the weaponry in Metal Gear Solid 2 laid an excellent groundwork for future entries where they'd find more use throughout the game. Anyways, you grab the mic and go to the fancy retinal scan door where you ambush an enemy by, I guess, shoving his face into the scanner. I probably would have done it Demolition Man style, but this works too. Oh look, I found Ames! Up to now in the series we've had plenty of codec calls, but our last one with the ninja and this one with Ames are the first where you're contacting people who are right next to you. It's kind of a, huh, moment? I think somewhere in the massive tech jargon at the beginning of the Big Shell, the Colonel talks about it, but long story short, it's nanomachines. Basically, nanomachines are telepathy at this point. I mean, by Metal Gear Solid 4, nanomachines are pretty much everything, so I guess I'll bite at them being telepathy, but I also think a lot of these long codec talks that take place between people who are literally right next to each other were done that way so that they wouldn't have to animate full 5 to 10 minute scenes of people just standing there, you know, talking. Ames gives a long-winded techno-babble speech about nanomachines and nuclear failsafes, I don't know, but he does dish out some juicy info as we find out that everything from the tanker incident to the Big Shell's construction was planned in order to use the facility for Metal Gear's research and development, and that today was just a test inspection of Metal Gear's progress. That sounds familiar. Then we finally get eyes on the main villain claiming to be Solid Snake, but we already know that ain't true, so who is this guy? Well, you aren't told here, but you listen to him and Ocelotta shoot the shit for a few minutes, casting suspicions about Patriot spies, launch codes, outer heaven. It doesn't really amount to anything though. But Ames does tell you the president is most likely working with the terrorists and that he shouldn't have betrayed the Lolly Lule Lo. But since we still don't know who or what that is, it's kinda hard to care, and Lolly Lule Lo doesn't get any cooler the more you hear it. Ames is flabbergasted by how little Raiden knows, which seems to be a recurring stance by characters in this game. He also tells us something about the ransom being BS, blah blah blah, something about a high altitude nuke, electromagnetic pulse over Manhattan, stock market stuff bad, you get it. Then Ocelotta comes over to see how we're doing and...
What the... You tricked me. I understand now. Ocelot.
Oh, guess we're doing that again. It looks like this shit's about to hit the fan, but our new Russian Osmo saves us. Thanks, robot friend. You're then supposed to try and escape here, but I always just camp in the box until the alert mode is over. It's just fun to be in the box, hiding in plain sight. Like a stealth master. Well, it's off to fetch quest a sniper rifle, then it's on to the Shell 1, Shell 2 bridge. Let's roll. We reach the bridge from Shell 1 to Shell 2, but it's wired with Semtex, and just like previous spots, you'll have to shoot out the sensors. Metal Gear Solid 2 is the only Metal Gear to not include a sniper duel, which tension-wise is a minus, but for someone like me who sucks at sniping, I don't mind it. This part is basically glorified sniper target practice, but the real challenge can be finding some of the sensor locations, especially the one a lot of people overlook that is literally right above your head, so well done, design team. You disable the Semtex, and since we've played the game for more than 5 minutes, it's time for some codec. Pliskin introduces Raiden to Otacon, and he starts becoming a bit more suspicious of his ally's true identity. But then on the far side of the bridge...
I've been waiting for you. A messenger from the Patriots.
How long have you been standing there? The man with the plan finally shows up. The best and I think most underrated villain of the series, Solidus Snake. Now I absolutely love Solidus as a character, and his motivations that...
You don't know yet!
But his existence in general makes no sense, even in the Metal Gear Solid universe, and I'll explain why briefly. Solidus was part of the Les Enfants Terribles project that birthed the twin snakes Liquid and Solid, who are polar opposites in terms of dominant and recessive genes. But Solidus is the perfect balance of both, so quite literally the perfect clone of Big Boss. But he was born the same year as Liquid and Solid Snake, so why does he look so much older? Like, we already know Solid Snake has an advanced aging issue, but wouldn't they age at the same rate? Also, a more real-world issue is how did Solidus manage to become president by 2005 when he's only 33, despite running age for president being at least 35 years old? And even more importantly to the Metal Gear Solid world, since he's the spitting image of Big Boss, and if Big Boss is such an icon in the military community, which we know he is, how did no one notice the President of the United States being the spitting image of the traitorous legendary soldier? But despite all the hows and lies I have about him, he still kicks ass.
Stop impersonating him. Brother, I'm a whole different game from Liquid.
It's unfortunate you have to die now, but I will honor you with 45% of my strength.
After Pliskin and Solidus do a bit of fraternal roughhousing, now we get to take on... Is that a fighter jet? Yeah, this boss battle is the Hind D fight from Metal Gear Solid all over. Yep, we're doing that again. Snake tosses you a Stinger missile launcher and rations from the helicopter for the assist, and it's kinda hard not to have fun during the boss fights where you get to use the Stinger missile launcher. I don't know why, but it's one of the most satisfying weapons to use throughout the series. Maybe because you know once you've locked onto your opponent, they're pretty much toast. It's a very straightforward boss fight, but because it's another Metal Gear Solid 1 retread, it doesn't do too much to stand out. Really, I'd say there's maybe 3 boss fights in this game that actually have their own unique feel. This just isn't one of them. It's fun, don't get me wrong, it's not bad, but it's just kinda here. After about 9 to 10 direct hits, you take out Solidus, swatting down that bothersome fly. Solidus and the jet go spiraling down, but this is Metal Gear Solid. There is no way we finished off the main bad guy after just one boss fight.
There's something coming up.
Yeah, I mean, I figured he was still alive, but I don't really know what that accomplished except another JoJo pose for Ray. But Vamp runs on the water, then up the side of the big shell. Okay, he's probably going to be a problem later on. Ray resubmerges, then Raiden fanboys out now that he knows he's talking to the Solid Snake. And surprisingly, he's a little indignant about their non-profit activities.
What you do isn't grassroots activism, it's more like terrorism. I admit that.
It's here that you also find out that Otacon's sister is stashed away somewhere on the big shell, so you know that's gonna be a thing. Rose calls to check in on us, and though the nagging "what is tomorrow" calls get on your nerves, these calls where Rose is just trying to be supportive are actually a nice touch, especially since I'm a sappy old fuck now and can appreciate the value of having someone you care about just checking on your well-being. Very nice, Kojima. The Colonel, who would know Snake better than anyone, says, "Nah, maybe it's him." And he turns into a bit of a moody prick about it too.
I don't understand. I read about you and Snake in the Darkness of Shadow Moses.
I don't give a damn what that piece of trash said. Do you get me?
After bitching you out, he tells you to hurry over to the president so you can stop his whole nanomachine passcode nonsense. We do a little tightrope hanging mode action over to Shell 2's core, and I think you could say at this point, we're traveling some fragile bridges. Yes, I did do that. This trek over to the Shell 2 core is a nice little piece of straight up stealth gameplay with one of the funniest moments in the franchise.
I'm going to go in my pants. Nobody's looking, right?
Yeah, just another example of something that Solid Snake is too cool to have happen to him, so of course it happens to Raiden. You make it to the Shell 2 core and eavesdrop on Olga about I just don't care. Then we have the electrified floor Nikita missile segment from Metal Gear Solid 1. Like, that's clearly what it is. Hell, Raiden and the Colonel even referenced doing that segment in VR. I really noticed this time through how much of the game is item fetch questing rather than concrete mission objectives. And it's part of what makes Raiden's chapter feel a bit laborious at times. Like, can't I just blow up a wall with the C4 I already have that never has a purposeful use the entire game? Because we blew up a wall within the last game. Nope, we gotta go find a Nikita missile launcher and we're gonna go swimming. I actually like the underwater areas. Again, everything's beautifully rendered and the control scheme is thankfully tight since it makes maneuvering around explosive obstacles simple and not some daunting angle of precision task. Of course, we're on a timer of sorts as we have to keep close eye on the oxygen gauge, but if it gets low, there are rest points to catch your breath. It's a very well thought out and designed concept. We get the launcher, blow up the panel, and have a very interesting introduction to the President.
Huh? I'm prepared to face the consequences of my betrayal.
What are you? What the?
You're a man? Well, who are you?
You know, after playing this game innumerable times, I still don't know what he was planning to do if Raiden was female. And I don't think I want to know. Since everything in this game is codec, we hop back on there and the President begins peeling back the first layer of this plot onion. He admits to being complicit with the terrorists, but that a clash of ideals led to him becoming their hostage. Of course, this is only after he put in the nuclear launch codes, kinda, you know, screwing over the whole world. He tells us about the shady shadow government running things from behind the scenes. You know, the Lolly Lule Lo, also known as the Patriots. So yeah, they're the same thing. I know you knew that, but I just like saying Lolly Lule Lo because it's so dumb and fun. The President says he's just a pawn and that the country is really run by the Patriots' secret Wiseman Council. Government is just a stage play to placate the public and citizens hold no real power. The Patriots decide how society is shaped within the country from who's president to what's big in pop culture, choosing what people and ideals thrive. It's also here that along with finding out Solidus was the former president, we find out that he was also the one that incited the entire Shadow Moses incident, and it's what put him at odds with the Patriots. The current president joined Solidus in Dead Cell, hoping to blackmail his way into the ranks of the Wiseman's Council, so he could truly leave a mark on history and not just be, as the games put it, a slave to someone else's will. However, he didn't realize Solidus is a bad motherfucker who doesn't want to be a patriot, he wants to take them on. Oh yeah, we also find out that we're inside of a gigantic Metal Gear that the Big Shell is being used as a front for.
What'd you say?
Not the Ray models, oh no. Those are for protecting this new behemoth known as Arsenal gear. But Arsenal isn't so much about setting off nukes, as it is about regulating the flow of digital information and allowing the Patriots to shape what truth suits their narratives. But that's about as far as we get with things for now. So the President begs you to kill him, then Ocelotta kills him, and then just sort of walks away, and you just kinda go,
what the dude?
We're ordered to go find Otacon's sister, and it's time for more swimming. Oh hey, it's Stillman. What's up, Pete? We get past this underwater obstacle course, and then it's time for a true one-on-one fight with Vamp.
Still ticking, huh?
Unfortunately, hell had no vacancies.
Before this fight, I just want to talk about how Vamp's character design came about. Yes, he's a vampire. Why? I don't know, it's never explained. Even character designer Yoji Shinkawa couldn't believe Metal Gear Solid 2 was going to have a vampire.
吸血鬼を出すんや。これまた冗談かなみたいな形だったんですけども、確か最初は女性。
Originally supposed to be a woman, he was then actually based on a Spanish flamenco dancer named Joaquin Cortez. And yeah, you can see the resemblance for sure, but that's also how Raiden looks like a young David Bowie. But it's not just his design that's interesting, it's the skill set and setting that are intriguing because he wasn't originally able to run on water or walls, and you weren't originally going to fight him here at the sediment pool. That would have been an unused character named the Chinaman, who ironically would have been a Vietnamese character.
それでチャイナマンと言われてるんですけど、で竜の入れ墨があって、その竜がこうあそこはチャイナマンと戦うはずだったから竜が出て水中を泳ぐのが非常にするとチャイナマンが飼ってるホウジロザメがいるんで。
While this Chinaman fight sounds insane, I can't imagine how frustrating navigating through sharks along with the boss fight would have been. And I think it just illustrates the genius and sanity of Kojima and his team. But thankfully, lack of time won out over ambition and we ended up with the awesome version of Vamp we got. But yeah, the boss fight is serviceable. Vamp can't help but get in on the info dump action, telling us Dead Cell was framed by the Patriots for some fugazi terrorism just like Snake, and that their goal is to destroy the Patriots and expose the truth, incidentally making you the villain of this game. Wait, I'm the oh fuck! And god, is he still talking? Something about a purified hydrogen bomb? I need some more coffee. While I enjoy about 90% of all this, some of the dialogue like Vamp's hydrogen bomb shit I just don't care about, especially since it has no bearing on what ends up actually happening. The Vamp fight is, again, pretty easy, and for our Metal Gear Solid 1 references, it's kinda like the Gray Fox fight if weapons worked on him, which makes sense since our intro to Vamp was almost exactly like the Metal Gear Solid 1 Gray Fox encounter. But you don't have to go hand to hand with Vamp, you can just Stinger Missile him for the first half of the fight, and then when he gets knife happy, the M4 and AK do the job. He hops around a lot, which can make targeting a pain, but that's a minor inconvenience for a boss fight where you can win by standing in a corner and light him up like Predator. Vamp dies, again, and we swim the rest of the way to our objective. And now we meet Otacon's sister, E.E., Emma Emmerich. I know I'm probably going to get some backlash for this take because a lot of people seem to like Emma, but I hate her character, and I hate every moment that she's in Metal Gear Solid 2. Don't get me wrong, Jennifer Hale is a great voice actress, and I love her work as Naomi, but if you thought Raiden's voice was whiny, Jennifer Hale said, bet. And man does she take the gold for most nails on a chalkboard whiny character voice ever.
No! I hate water!
Oh my god, are you 5 years old? There are a few things that make this section absolutely soul-crushing. Let me count the ways, because there's 7 of them. Number 1, it's an escort mission, and I hate escort missions. They just always feel like an inconvenience that keeps you from enjoying the core game. It just makes the normal stuff slightly more difficult because you have another person to account for. However, by escort mission standards, Metal Gear Solid 2 isn't too bad, mainly because as we've done the entire game, you can just trank the guards and get by. Still, I didn't sign up to hold hands and be pest control. Number 2, stopping every 30 seconds to have an 8-minute codec call. Granted, this has been happening a lot throughout the game, but this is also the biggest offense of the whole codec calls with someone standing right next to you thing I mentioned earlier. So it feels even more intrusive than when the colonel or someone not around you is interrupting the gameplay for exposition. Number 3, she moves so slow. Yeah, they explained that she was drugged and she's still a little wonky, but why was this even done? Do you hate me, Kojima? Number 4, she's afraid of everything. Whether it's bugs, heights, or swimming, she just can't or won't do it. I killed a fucking vampire to get to this woman and she won't even walk over some damn sea lice to save her own life. Number 5, we just started getting some interesting info about Arsenal and the whole Patriots controlling digitized info stuff, and now we're going to stop with that interesting storyline for 30 minutes of this weirdly incestuous vibed family drama between Otacon and EE. Reasons 6 and 7 for hating this part I'll get to shortly, but let's start this dumpster fire of a section. Just like Otacon, you find his sister hiding in a locker, and after finally convincing her you're not a threat and that she's needed in order to upload her virus into Arsenal gear, Emma relents. But when you mention the place is flooded, you get the oh-so-mature reaction I just showed you.
No! I hate water! It's hopeless! I kids swim!
After more prodding, she agrees to hold on to us while we do the swimming, so now we have 2 oxygen gauges to pay attention to, but it's still a simple task if you're observant of the rest areas. We take a pit stop at the sediment pool for her to give us more backstory on her childhood with Otacon that I know I don't care about. The only good part of this scene is this epic line from Raiden.
Colonel, I've got Emma Emmerich here. We've managed to avoid drowning.
Only in Metal Gear Solid. Only in Metal Gear Solid. We're about to continue our swim, but we have to pause for more codec. However, this time it's actually about the game's plot. Hooray! Emma reiterates what the President said. Arsenal Gear is a massive data processing system. But going further, it's a social device for the Patriots to censor and shape the massive digital information across the net to suit their interests. This is probably the most interesting thing Emma exposes, but she also takes forever to get to her point, and of course it's in a very techno-babbly way. Don't worry, I won't even try to synopsize because there's actually an optional codec call between Raiden and Rose that acts as a Cliff Notes version of Emma's long dialogue.
Jack, how far do you think the Patriots' digital control extends?
I don't really know, but it probably influences a lot of what goes on in our everyday lives.
Even mundane things like which movies and songs become a hit and what kind of clothes we wear?
I think taste would be the easiest thing to manipulate. I mean, think about the kinds of film and bands everyone wants to go to see. It's whatever's at the top of the charts.
And if the charts are made up...
Exactly.
But you can't really control individual taste. It's too closely tied to personality.
I don't know about that. Trends have always been about following the leader.
Not necessarily.
The age of direct personal interaction is over. So is the idea of word-of-mouth communication.
I never thought I'd say this, but thank you, Raiden and Rose. You chaperone Emma from the Shell 2 core to the bottom of Strut L, killing bugs, putting out fires, and tranquilizing guards along the route. You reach the sea level, and while EE crosses these pontoons over to Shell 1, you have to take out mines, guards, and ciphers that are in the way. And this is reason number 6, this flimsy excuse to have one more sniping portion, and one they must have realized was a bit of a pain in the ass, because about a third of the way through, you have the option to let Snake take over. All you have to do is hover your scope over a target, and Snake will do the rest. I've always let Snake handle this part because A, I suck at sniping, and B, I suck at sniping. So after watching Snake be a badass for a couple of minutes, and the slowest walking anyone has ever witnessed, Emma's pretty much across when... Oh my god, it's Vamp again. Why won't you fucking die? Alright, aside from Fortune, this is without a doubt the easiest boss fight you'll have in Metal Gear Solid 2. You shoot him in the face a few times and, well, he dies. Again. And, that's the end of Vamp. It's a very anticlimactic ending for a guy you've killed 3 times and just kept coming back. So... I guess that's done. Emma's stabbed and Snake gets her over to Shell 1 as you rush over. Once you've arrived, she's already uploaded the virus to Arsenal Gear, but the system shuts down after the virus is only semi-uploaded. Emma and Otacon reunite, lots of sads, then she dies like every woman in the series Otacon cares about. And this is my reason number 7. Not only is this the 3rd time in this game we've had large amounts of info dumping from a character we met 1 minute after they were mentioned and 2 minutes before they died, but it's also the pattern of Kojima using the female character's deaths in his games for easy emotional gut punches that are supposed to affect the main character, thus affecting us the player. It's honestly not much more sophisticated than Bed'em and Dead'em.
Bed'em and Dead'em. Look, first act, he meets a lady. She's super hot, but I'm smarter. Right? And then he bangs her and she gets dead. And later on, he meets someone, all right, this one's smart, I'll give her that, but I'm funnier. You know what I mean? He bangs her, she gets dead, and then in the end, he falls in love with an ugly one, and who cares about that? I don't care about that. And then she gets dead, and that sets up for the next movie, and I'm all in, because all of the women are dead.
While MGS doesn't go quite as far as D would like with the betting Kojima for sure deads him before everything is said and done. But among all the Metal Gear Solid female deaths, Emma's was a disservice to giving her character a purpose, but also to the player after you just spent a half hour escorting her to safety and now she's dead?
Fuck, man, what?
Snake tells Otacon to get the hostages out safely, then badass slow-mo, followed by the most awesome bro moment between Snake and Otacon. Otacon leaves us, and then this happens.
I miss you. How? I miss you. I miss you. I miss you.
Honestly, the parrot saying "I miss you, Hal" is probably the most heartstring pulling of this, because it shows despite how long they had gone without talking, Emma never stopped thinking about Otacon. And you know, maybe this scene would have hit the players harder if this whole section wasn't giving you weird incest vibes between Emma and Otacon. And then Otacon giving the story about fucking his stepmom happens, and it's too much uncomfortable weirdness to even focus on Emma's death at that point.
死ぬっていうことはまずないと思うので、エマも、まあ暴力によって、死んでいくっていう姿っていう表現は最後までこう何としても入れて欲しかったっていうそういう思い。
I know Kojima always means well. You can tell there was real thought put behind this scene, but sometimes he has such an A to Z to get to B way of doing things, it's hard for the intended point to resonate with the player. Yeah, I'm done with Otacon for now, and we're done with this fucking section. Let's check back with Raiden and Snake.
You can come out now.
A ninja? What the?
Arsenal's going to take off. We still need you to take care of a few things. This time, don't fail us.
Snake, what's this all about?
Bedtime, Raiden. I wouldn't do that.
You're changing sides now?
Change sides? I don't recall saying I was on yours.
Damn it. You!
Ready for some shut-eye?
So it turns out Olga was the ninja, Solid Snake just went liquid on us, and now we're captured. Oh man, I hope we don't have to do that again. Let's take a moment to catch our breath. I know I've done a fair amount of nitpicking for a game I call a masterpiece, but I think we have to remember something can be amazing and still have its flaws. And if a game's real flaw is making you wish it had more of what makes it great already, I'd say that's a pretty positive negative. That being said, if it's your first time going through the big shell, to this point plot-wise and even boss fight design-wise, things have more or less been a rehashed version of Metal Gear Solid 1. And this is where you would be right and wrong at the same time. Yeah, we're about to take the good crazy pills, because this is where Metal Gear Solid 2 finally starts to explain things and come into its own, in terms of storyline, set pieces, and boss fights, even though from here on out there's maybe 20 minutes of actual gameplay left, and close to an hour and a half of codec and cutscenes, so there's a lot to unpack. We're not just going to be taking detours, we're going to be constructing new roads with theories and concepts the rest of the way. Remember all those motivations and side topics I said we'd get to later on? Well, now is later on. It's time to get folked and jack a track ahead to Metal Gear Solid 2's insane conclusion. Let's go. We wake up in what seems to be the familiar confines of the Metal Gear Solid 1 torture chamber, and as we're rousing ourselves back to consciousness, you hear Ocelotta and Solidus convening, and it turns out Solidus knows us? Then he chokes you with his Doc Ock tentacles because, well, it's the torture room. And this is where we get a big glimpse of Raiden's childhood, finding out he was a highly skilled child soldier who Solidus took under his wing and trained during the Liberian War. And the reason Raiden doesn't remember any of this is that the Patriots put a memory inhibitor on his brain.
CIA put a chip in my brain.
It could be argued that the reveal of Raiden's skilled childhood soldier past kind of ruins the Patriots' theory that with enough VR training, anybody can be turned into Solid Snake, because having Raiden go through the S3 training is basically like having the Amnesia version of Jason Bourne go through it. Yeah, they may not know who they are or how they got the skills they have, but the fact remains, they got some moves. And it just seems like it would make more sense for someone with no combat experience whatsoever to go through this training, but whatever, the Patriots seem to know what they're doing. Anyway, we get more tastefully framed shots. Solidus and Ocelot say they'll use us as planned. How?
You don't know yet!
Then Ocelot's phantom arm starts acting up, but he manages to tame it for the moment, but acknowledges it's probably because Solid Snake is around. So, that's a thing, I guess. Solidus has gone big boss with the eye patch now. He leaves us alone with Ocelot, who takes the virus disc from us, and then...
This situation, I find it very nostalgic. Where am I? Why, inside Arsenal gear, of course. Actually, we're also inside the memory of Shadow Moses.
But Ocelot's line there is pretty much perfect because this whole game has been a memory of Shadow Moses. But it's also felt a lot more silly and over the top than Metal Gear Solid 1. Almost like it's a satire of the original. We can explore that by looking at one of MGS1's major inspirations, Escape from New York, and how the tone of that film's sequel and MGS2 mirror each other as well. There's no surprise that people compare Metal Gear Solid 1 and Escape from New York. The two have very similar one-man military rescue mission stories with main characters both named Snake, and the only reason Metal Gear Solid wasn't sued for copyright infringement is that John Carpenter said he likes Kojima and that he was nice to him when they met. But it's interesting nobody compares Metal Gear Solid 2 to Escape from LA, because they're even more similar than MGS1 in New York. Both MGS2 and Escape from LA are wackier versions of their originals, and it becomes really obvious during scenarios that the sequels attempted to recreate from their predecessors. These retreaded moments aren't quite as tense as the originals, but end up being so bizarre and comical they become memorable unto themselves. I'll give examples from both Escape movies along with MGS 1 and 2, and I think the scenes that encapsulate this best are when our main characters get captured. Let's start with the Escape films. In Escape from New York, when Snake is captured by the Duke, he's forced to do in-ring gladiatorial style combat to earn his life, and after winning a very action-packed fight, the entire arena is chanting his name. Then they realize the president's gone and everyone just sort of leaves and Snake goes back to his mission. Fast forward to Escape from LA, when Snake is captured and taken to the Coliseum, where he has to make 10 shots in a row in basketball to earn his life. Oh, and he only has 10 seconds between shots too. So as the shot clock winds down to 0 after 9 makes, Snake sinks the 1997 CGI full court shot and the crowd goes fucking wild again, chanting, and then to escape the Coliseum and continue his mission, he water slides through the sewers to the LA basin and then surfs on a tsunami with the worst green screen ever, only to jump onto a moving car. Yeah, it's pretty fucking amazing. But my point is that it's essentially two scenarios that are exactly the same, but with extremely different tones. That being said, I love them both, just like I do with MGS 1 and 2. And let's look at their captivity sequences. In Metal Gear Solid 1, when you're captured, you have to endure one of the most button-mashing, hand-cramp-inducing torture minigames to grace consoles, and if you survive, you get to go for round 2. Then you have to use your wits to escape, whether it be hiding under the bed or using ketchup to fake your death, after which you recover your gear and go on with your mission. Then in Metal Gear Solid 2, when we're captured, we're stripped naked this time, only tortured for like 5 seconds of mild button mashing, then an ally frees you, leaving you to tackle one of the most pure stealth segments in the entire game while you're buck naked, not even able to enter hanging mode because you have to cover your junk till you can find Snake. And if it's not weird enough, this is where Raiden's reality starts disintegrating with the Colonel calling you with some of the most strange codec moments ever. And yeah, they're eerie, but also hilarious. Again, two scenarios that start exactly the same, whose goal is the same, but whose tones are wildly different. There's numerous instances of this throughout both works, and it makes them almost feel like parodies. In taking even more cues from Escape from LA, Solidus' original plan to detonate a massive EMP nuke that would take out all electronic devices in Manhattan to crash Wall Street, well, that's almost exactly what Snake Pliskin does at the end of the movie. He double-crosses the government that was planning to double-cross him, using a doomsday device that will shut off all the power across the planet, essentially sending the world back to the Dark Ages. Okay, maybe Snake Pliskin went a little more extreme than what Solidus had planned, but he did the damn thing still. But I think it can't be denied that both Metal Gear Solid 2 and Escape from LA share the rare realm of satirical sequels.
You know what you're doing.
Anyway, where were we? Oh yeah, Naked Raiden. So Olga shows up and says, let me get in on the codec action. We now know she's the ninja, and she says she was forced to provide support for you by the Patriots who have taken her child as hostage to ensure she complies. When you ask about her alliance with Snake, she professes that for the past 2 years she blamed him for her father's death, but just found out he and Otacon were actually the ones who saved her and her men, thus leading to their current cooperation. She says she'll get us out of here and to be patient, and while we're waiting to be freed, Rose calls us and we have what's supposed to be a tragic conversation about Raiden's upbringing, but it comes off kinda flat. I mean, Raiden's past is super dark and super fucked up. But I don't know, I think having it conveyed in this soap opera-ish way really takes away from a lot of it. Kojima touches on the topic of child soldiers multiple times throughout the Metal Gear Solid series, but he never really seems to do anything with it. Anyway, after this long codec call, we're freed, but still naked and afraid, and this nude stealth action ahead is the final sneaking portion, and being honest, it's probably the best pure stealth in this entire game, putting your patience and timing of guard routes along with the ability to remain hidden to the test. You have no weapons, except for the one you're covering with both hands.
Dude hangs dumb.
I missed that!
If you're discovered, you can only fight one-handed because, well, public decency, and you can't even enter hanging mode right now because, well, you know, the dong. Yes, you could just sprint through the area and trip the alert, and it won't really matter once you leave this section, but that's no fun. It's a stealth action game. And despite how strange this section is, we're gonna be the sneaky version of
the flesh. He's super strong and super naked.
This is also the part of the game where reality starts to crumble, making the preceding events look mundane by comparison. Because during the birthday suit shuffle, you start getting some of the most bizarre, fucked up, eerie calls from the Colonel. One of which even tells you to turn off the console because you've been playing for too long, and that you'll ruin your eyes by sitting so close to the TV. Oh shit, I think Big Boss is watching me. While these are some of the strangest lines in any Metal Gear Solid game, and that's saying something, they're also some of the most memorable from this entry. I remember more of the Colonel's fucked up calls during this 10-minute segment than any of the hour-long expo dumping we got between Ames, the President, Vamp, and Emma. That might also be because the Colonel has one call in particular that's become a major meme in Metal Gear Solid communities.
I hear it's amazing when the famous purple stuffed worm in Flapjaw space with the tuning fork does a raw blink on Harry Carey rock. I need scissors. 61.
And after this slew of calls that can have the player questioning what's wrong with their PlayStation console, Rose calls you, and it turns out she's a Patriot spy keeping tabs on us since the day we met.
You played us like a damn fiddle!
And this just serves to blur Raiden's perception of reality even more. And while Rose is being sincere, saying she really did fall in love and that it hurt her more knowing Raiden loved the character she was playing rather than her, Raiden rightfully is pretty pissed, but still acknowledges his own role in not seeing Rose for who she really was. And for the icing on the cake, the call cuts out right as she says she's pregnant.
Amazing how you walk around like that.
Snake!
Snake shows up with our gear and, yeah, badass turnaround pose. But Snake says Arsenal's heading for Manhattan and there's a whole squad of Rays to deal with ahead as well. Yeah, kinda forgot to mention the whole Arsenal gear being on the move thing and the big shell capsizing when you got captured. Oops. But the truly great part about this scene is that this is where we get our sword. Hell yeah. This is also the moment where Raiden comes into his own. He's his own master now, a unique character with a set of skills even Snake doesn't have. It's not quite apparent in the game, but in Raymond Benson's novelization of Metal Gear Solid 2, which sadly doesn't have too much added insight, There is a part that describes Snake actually being impressed with Raiden's sword skills, beginning to see him as a competent ally. We practice our Deathstroke, and then cheeky Kojima winked to the fans of the first game.
If you run out of ammo, you can have mine.
You got enough?
Absolutely. Infinite ammo.
Snake and Raiden riff for a couple minutes, with Raiden putting Snake on a pedestal, wondering what keeps him waking up every day to fight the good fight, and Snake responding with advice about living for yourself and finding what ideals and beliefs are worth passing on to the next generation.
Believe in what?
That's your problem.
Then Otacon tells us what's been up with the Colonel. He's not even real. We've been talking to an AI this entire time, formed from Raiden's expectations and experiences. Yeah, Raiden's entire reality is basically disintegrated in the past 5 minutes, and honestly, I wouldn't blame him if he curled up in the fetal position in the corner and sucked his thumb at this point, but he keeps pressing on. Also, fortunately, he's got Snake here to keep him grounded, but dude is going through a lot. This next segment is what I've been looking forward to all damn game. It's time to slice and dice. The sword is by far the most fun weapon to use in Metal Gear Solid 2. I've always played this segment using the sword only. So yeah, it's my own fault that a lot of the arsenal we've acquired goes to waste, but it's the first time we've had the opportunity to cut a bitch in Metal Gear Solid, and by God, I'm gonna go shank happy. It's a couple of really cool arena shooter areas with you going on a kill spree alongside Snake, who's toting the MGS-1 FAMAS. I think we can agree most times AI partners just sort of stand by and are fairly useless, but Snake is a total G and holds his own in these battles, sometimes putting me to shame and shooting a guy in the face before I'm able to hack and slash into the afterlife. There's no other way to put it, it's just fun going around indiscriminately stabbing enemies. The game continues to dick with you here though, even giving you a false game over screen in the hopes of making you quit accidentally. You two go on a mass murder rampage for a few minutes, taking out the rest of the Tengus, then Fortune shows up again. Alright, this is going to be where we get retribution for that embarrassing fight earlier. And now we have a sword? Oh, she's so screwed.
Looks like I'm today's pick. You go on ahead.
Wait, what? No, I don't want to go, Snake. Can't I at least watch you fight? Because this is gonna be sweet.
You want eternal rest? I've got it right here.
Oh, maybe we should go inside.
But Marge, that little guy hasn't done anything yet. He's gonna do something, and you know it's gonna be good.
Right, get out of here.
No! Since so much of this game has been spent going, man, Snake is so awesome, why can't I be Snake? I'd like to take a moment to look at the 2002 re-release of the game titled Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance, which gave fans what they wanted, or so we thought. For lack of a better comparison, Substance was like DLC before DLC. It still contained the core game, but was loaded with extra content like VR missions, storyline documents, skateboarding, and a series of side ops called Snake Tales. The VR missions make up the bulk of extra content with sneaking, elimination, and weapons mode, along with bomb disposal and alternative missions. It's quite expansive and a fun Metal Gear Solid playground to use your arsenal that largely goes to waste in the main game. You can also unlock some cool skins like Metal Gear Solid 1 Snake, Ninja Raiden, and Pliskin, and the variety of their playstyles adds some replay value. As for the truly out-of-left-field content, they added skateboarding, or snakeboarding as I call it, which was a crossover between Metal Gear Solid 2 and Konami's skate title, Evolution Skateboarding. It has a cool song, and I'll admit the Big Shell makes a decent skate park, but it's no Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. It's super goofy, but like almost everything in Substance, it's a fun addition to the main game. However, the real draw of Substance was the set-aside missions known as Snake Tales. The Snake Tales missions take place concurrent with Raiden's Big Shell events, allowing us to experience Solid Snake's unseen adventure through the plant. And this sounds awesome, until you actually get to play them. Most likely due to budget and time restraints, Snake Tales stories are told through on-screen text instead of cutscenes or codec calls, which, fair enough, that's not the worst. But what does suck is that unlike the main game that has the trusty Soliton radar, Snake is only equipped with this RP sensor that detects nearby enemy heartbeats, getting faster as they approach. And this would be fine if the enemies were in the same places as the main story, but they're in completely new spots that will just fuck you up left and right if you don't go at a snail's pace. But it's just really frustrating. And to top this no radar thing off, one of the 6 Snake Tail missions is an escort mission. and you already know how I feel about those. I did actually manage to complete one Snake Tale mission titled External Gazer that had a trippy VR story even stranger than the actual MGS2 plot, and while that mission was a treat, Snake Tales overall was just a bust. It's really like the only thing in Substance that isn't fun. It can actually reach throw your controller against the wall difficulty, we'll put it that way. Still, I would give Substance's extra content a B. It's fun with some unique modes and offers a steep challenge for the true Metal Gear Solid completionists, but I really wish the Snake Tales missions were more refined and accessible to the average gamer. But I kinda understand why they implemented the player handicaps during those missions. It's super meta, but just like Raiden has been trying to be Snake, now that you are Snake, the game is putting your skills to the test to see if you can really operate like the legendary Foxhound Commando. It's basically Substance's version of the Solid Snake simulation. But if you're somebody who was looking to get a copy of Metal Gear Solid 2, I suggest getting Substance for all these extras. You could say it's the definitive edition. Speaking of Solid Snake simulations, we've arrived back where our big shell journey began, the S3 plan. After how much of the story has revolved around Raiden's VR training and the fact he's going through experiences resembling simulations he's completed, you can understand why we started here. But it's still just the tip of the iceberg. And it's at this point you start to realize you've been used the whole time, and yes, incidentally, by carrying out the Patriots' will, like I said earlier, we're the villains of this game. Well, I guess the road to hell is paved in good intentions, because we just came here to do the sneaky sneak, snap a few necks, and be a badass like Solid Snake. Not digitally enslave humanity, but we can discuss that in a moment because it's time for our big bad murder mech fight that this whole game's title has been leading to. The Metal Gear raid battle is one of the few memorable boss fights I inferred about earlier, and it's because you're taking on 3 Metal Gears at a time this go around, when in the last game, 1 was enough to give players fits. But along with the exponential amount of raids we have to destroy, the environment for this fight is one of the most unique and doesn't feel like anything we've seen in any other MGS mainline game. Obviously, it's supposed to remind us of the VR training environment, but it also feels like an arena that was designed specifically for this moment, and there's just something really aesthetically satisfying about this fight. I guess you could also say it's the most Souls-like fight in the game too. Don't worry, it's not Dark Souls level hard, but it's a fight that really comes down to you recognizing attack patterns and being able to hit the raised weak points to set up a heavy damage shot, with a process requiring a lot, and I mean a lot, of repetition. However, it's another welcome change of pace from Metal Gear Solid 1, and though it seems daunting at the beginning, once you get in the groove, it's a relatively easy fight, provided you don't get destroyed by homing missiles. It's a rinse and repeat effort after each ray you eliminate, and after about 7 or 8 of them, this fight is doneski. The rays start closing in, but Olga shows up to protect us so that her child will survive. Then Solidus appears out of nowhere, then he chokes Olga with his Doc Ock arms and kills her while we stand there doing nothing. It's pretty fucked up, and I actually liked Olga because she had been the most formidable female in the series thus far, so to just bump her off so unceremoniously was kinda a slap in the face.
Bet him and dead him.
The rays begin malfunctioning from Emma's virus, and Solidus gets to show us why he's the fucking man by taking him out like nothing.
Oh, that's so cool!
Damn the Patriots!
Arsenal's out of control, and so is Solidus, and I'm loving it. Looks like Snake got captured too. Fuck. We wake up and get choked again by Solidus' tentacles because, torture? Solidus tells Fortune that his intention was never to steal Arsenal gear. All he wanted was the Patriots' names so he could bump them off and free the people from their grasps. Yeah, sure, he's a homicidal maniac, but he is technically doing the right thing? I guess. Then Ocelotta shows up and things get even more Wild Wild West.
What exactly do you find so funny?
Charades usually are humorous. I wouldn't have minded watching some more of it, but we're running a little short on time.
Ocelotta reveals the Patriots orchestrated everything all of you have experienced at the Big Shell as the true S3 exercise, a recreation of Shadow Moses acting as a VR training kernel for molding a soldier into Solid Snake through manipulation of circumstances, with everyone involved in the experiment being chosen because of memetic similarities to characters from the first game. Dead Cell of course represents the Foxhound unit, but he says he arranged for the ninja's arrival and that Ames and the President's deaths were part of the recreation. Even Emma's virus is a digital version of Foxdie, but instead of targeting specific people's DNA like MGS1, it targets specific info and arsenal, which in this case is the names of the Patriots. So yeah, Solidus' plan is kinda fucked now. Fatman turned out to be a Patriots agent who was meant to test Raiden's progress at the halfway point, and had we not stopped the bombing, the project would have been a failure. This leaves why Raiden and Solidus were chosen, and the reason is a little strange, but it's because their relationship resembles Solid Snake and Big Boss, even though Big Boss wasn't, around for Metal Gear Solid 1. However, this entire Shadow Moses recreation twist makes absolute sense. Raiden's VR training before this mission was based on simulated scenarios from Shadow Moses, and the group of terrorists he's been taking on during the Big Shell were a unit used to test the effectiveness of VR training by putting soldiers through real-life scenarios. But it's a total mindfuck for the player because this means that playing Metal Gear Solid 1 was us receiving our VR training to take on the Big Shell chapter in this game. And it really hits you if you think about all the footage shown when Raiden and Snake initially discussed VR training. Because as Raiden's listing all the missions he's completed, they show clips from MGS VR missions. Obviously not something Snake would have experienced, but something that us the player would have gone through in order to hone our Solid Snake skills. But I find it fascinating that whenever Kojima brings up VR in the MGS series, it's always a way of acknowledging the player's role and influence in the game world he's created, and a way of tacking on active responsibility to every action we take. We're not passive observers, our actions do have tangible consequences to the world surrounding us, whether in the physical or virtual realm. Yeah, guess what? We're Raiden, and Raiden is us. Am I even real anymore? This is also where some fans have really taken to heart the VR theory of Metal Gear Solid 2, that all of the Big Shell events take place in a VR simulation and not the same physical world as Metal Gear Solid 1. I think this is a very interesting, heady theory, but one that falls apart once you look at future entries of the series. Not only did Metal Gear Solid 4 outright state that the events of Sons of Liberty took place, but I think what really encompasses the VR theory is that external gazer mission from Substance we talked about a little earlier. It's a story that literally takes place in a VR simulator. There's even a bit where Snake says that while in VR, he feels like his actions aren't his own, and like some outside force is controlling his movements. And if that weren't enough, there's the segment where you have to escape virtual reality by choosing to exit rather than continue the game. There's quite a bit more to the story, but it's VR theory to the core. I can see with things like the AI kernel and fission mailed screens why VR theory has become a popular discussion point for Metal Gear Solid 2, but I think these were done because as Raiden's reality collapses, our game world separate of our own shatters as well. Not because the game is taking place in a simulator, but to connect you, the player, and Raiden as one at a pivotal moment, making you one and the same.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Okay, back to the wackiness. Ocelotta says to Fortune, "Snake didn't kill your daddy, it was me." Then he shoots her and goes, "Oops, you're not magic, we just gave you this fancy pager thing that prevents you from being shot." Magic doesn't exist, even though Metal Gear Solid 1 had a guy with psychokinetic powers. But okay, let's also take a moment here to address the two fiercely strong women who just died in the blink of an eye, because they represent something very important in Metal Gear Solid 2's story. Olga&Fortune represent the masses the Patriots aim to control, because they were easily manipulated to make rash, hardline decisions based on unfound truths, instead attaching themselves to a narrative that suits the needs of their emotions. And the similarities in their backgrounds can't be ignored either. Both women from military backgrounds whose fathers were killed in the tanker incident, and both consume the Patriots' narrative that Solid Snake was the terrorist who sunk the ship and killed their loved ones. In fact, both believe this narrative until probably the last 20 minutes of the game. Olga finds out Snake and Otacon actually saved her from the tanker during the segment where you're saving Emma, and had Ocelot not done his Bond villain exposition, Fortune probably would have continued to believe the fiction and may have killed Snake. But it's a perfect example of how curated truth mixed with preconceived notions can steer beliefs and actions, and exactly how control through misinformation thrives. Getting back to the action, Ocelot shows some major hops, jumping about 30 feet high into Ray's cockpit, then Solidus retaliates by doing this.
So cool! That's so dumb!
Apparently Fortune's still alive and hellbent on proving she can deflect missiles despite just being hit point blank with a bullet, and Ocelot's willing to oblige.
Everybody down! What the? Impossible!
She is Lady Luck.
I guess she does have psychic powers? For a series that's given the explanations of nanomachines and vocal core parasites for powers, it's a little frustrating there's no real reasoning for Fortune or Psycho Mantises, but these sort of fantastical moments are what separate the Metal Gear games from any other stealth franchise. The unexplainable can and will happen in these games, and in cinematic, cool ways. Fortune dies now that she's gone out like a boss, and Ocelot prepares for another round when the Ghost in the Shell makes its appearance.
No! No, not now!
Brothers!
That's right, Liquid's back again. I have to admit, I really like Liquid's voice actor Cam Clark, who manages to steal every scene he's in, and even though hearing Liquid be his snidely whiplash self brings a smile to my face, I just wish it was done in not such a stupid way. Liquid explains that he's been lying dormant in Ocelot's arm waiting for the right time to emerge, and that he's the one who leaked info on Metal Gear to Snake and Otacon to lure them out, since Snake is the only one who can bring out Liquid. Okay, then how did Liquid contact them if he needs Snake around to get out? Never mind, why am I asking logical questions? Then he tells us he plans to use Ocelot in order to find out the Patriots' location and destroy them. Among everything we've discussed in this video, this is the dumbest. There's no, oh, I can understand why this was done for more nuanced reasons. There's even an actual reason for it that's so bad and continuity killing, it makes you wish Liquid Ocelot was an unexplained anomaly like Fortune or Mantis. There's so much weird shit in the Metal Gear Solid saga, like Ocelot meowing for reinforcements, every cutscene from the Twin Snakes, and the B&B core Metal Gear Solid 4. But to this point, Liquid taking over Ocelot's mind through an arm transplant was the most absurd event in the series, but it was also necessary in order to, well, just to keep Liquid around. I especially love this part where Liquid says he chose Ocelot as his host. Like, how did that work? Did Ocelot walk outside after Metal Gear Solid 1 and Liquid's dead body was like, psst, hey you handlebar mustache double-crossing bitch, look at my right arm. It's so sexy, isn't it? You know you'd like to have this right arm. Think about how we can shoot all the guns of the Patriots. But in the insane nanotechnological exoskeleton world of Metal Gear Solid, couldn't someone have just transferred Liquid's consciousness into a robot or something? I mean, they pretty much did it with Gray Fox. I don't know, it just strains my brain that this was the solution to Liquid being dead. And we spent Metal Gear Solid 3 having it refined by revealing Ocelot's father to be the Sorrow, who was a spirit medium, and that was actually a logical, smart way of explaining why Ocelot's able to channel Liquid Psyche. To be honest, after Metal Gear Solid 3, I was like, okay, this once illogical mess makes some semblance of sense now. So alright, fair play to you, Kojima. What's next? Then Metal Gear Solid 4 comes around and you spend the entire game dealing with Liquid Ocelot and his Outer Heaven Insurrection, leading to the absolute kick in the balls, fuck your why answer that craps all over the spirit medium stuff I just mentioned. At the end of Metal Gear Solid 4, it's revealed to Solid Snake that Liquid's possession of Ocelot was a planned ruse as means of lowering the Patriots' guard. Apparently Ocelot was able to use hypnosis, psychotherapy drugs, and nanomachines to transplant Liquid's personality onto himself. But in Metal Gear Solid 4, he has a cybernetic arm, so he doesn't even have Liquid's arm anymore. Why? Ocelot had removed the transplant arm of Liquid because the so-called possessions during the Big Shell incident had caused an imbalance to his psyche. Alright, one of the biggest reasons this makes no sense is Liquid and Ocelot's individual motivations. Liquid's whole plan was to start a new Outer Heaven, be the new big boss, and destroy the Patriots, while Ocelot's only concrete motivation through the first 3 games was working for the Patriots. The dude has been a Patriots agent for 50 years. His sole motivations in Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 are capturing the test data of Rex and the S3 for the Patriots. And so how is it explained that Liquid's motivations became Ocelot's? Well, this one sentence. After the Manhattan incident that had caused an imbalance to his psyche, Ocelot then allowed Liquid's psyche to dominate his mind completely.
First, what? And second, no.
Definitely first what, second no, because he doesn't even have the dude's fucking arm anymore, so how is he even being possessed? You know, I guess my problems with Liquid Ocelot are more from being a fan of the entire series rather than Metal Gear Solid 2. But out of all the outlandish shit that happens in this franchise, and let's not forget, Quiet in Metal Gear Solid 5 wears virtually no clothes because she breathes through her skin, Liquid Ocelot is one of the stupidest character arcs and motivations in all of Metal Gear Solid, and feels like the biggest retcon for bumping off such a great villain like Liquid in the first place. But I really feel like it detracts from the Littlefinger-esque, duplicitous villainry of Ocelot in the first 3 games, and ruins his character to serve the purpose of the Twin Snakes rivalry in Metal Gear Solid 4. Just remember, this whole rant stemmed from
But I live on through this arm!
Fuck you. Tuning back into this fucked up family reunion, Liquid says,
There's room for only one snake and one big boss.
And then he just decides to leave. He's about to jump off the side of Arsenal when Snake breaks out of his handcuffs because, well, he's badass. And he dives in right behind Liquid to stop him? I don't know. But Arsenal's on a crash course for Manhattan with Solidus and Raiden still aboard. And you'd think in a game like Metal Gear Solid 2 that a giant nuclear digital AI battleship crashing into the middle of Manhattan would have an insane cinematic sequence. And it did. The sequence showed the Liberty statue being demolished with the head rolling onto Ellis Island and Arsenal crashing through multiple buildings as it beaches itself. But it ended up being cut because it resembled the 9/11 attacks which took place after the cutscene was created, but before the game was released. Which is, I
think I need to go pray.
We make our crash landing at Federal Hall, Solidus laughs maniacally, and then sheds some light on the Sons of Liberty title.
Do you know what day it is today?
Oh no, not that again.
April 30th?
That's right. George Washington took office as the first president of the United States of America 200 years ago today. And it happened right here. We were going to declare another independence, the dawn of a new nation here. The end of the Patriots' secret rule, liberation of this country. This was where it was supposed to begin. This is where freedom could have been born.
I think that's a really cool plot point, and the first time Metal Gear Solid started dabbling with mixing in textbook history, which would come to a head in the super revisionist history tale that is Metal Gear Solid 3. And now we finally get to learn the motivations that make Solidus endearing, and gives you the sense that by ruining his plans,
I've made a huge mistake.
Jack, it's not power I want. What I wanted to take back from the Patriots are things like freedom, civil rights, opportunities. The founding principles of this country.
Oh man, we really fucked things up, didn't we?
Everything that's about to be wiped out by their digital censorship.
This bit about being born with an expiration date and that life is a grace period to pass on genetic information is very Metal Gear Solid 1. Surprise, surprise. But I'll let Solidus explain the rest of his personal motives.
We brothers are called les enfants terribles. Cloned from our father, with the ability to reproduce conveniently engineered out. What is our legacy if we cannot pass the torch? Proof of our existence, a mark of some sort. When the torch is passed on from parent to child, it extends beyond DNA. Information is imparted as well. All I want is to be remembered by other people, by history. The Patriots are trying to protect their power, their own interests, by controlling the digital flow of information. I want my memory, my existence to remain.
Though he doesn't elaborate what he wants to be remembered for, I guess this is where you're like, you know, I totally agree with Solidus' motives, and I think he falls in the rare category of anti-villain. He has more good guy qualities than bad, but goes about everything in a supervillain sort of way. But what the hell, characters always seem to go about their goals in mind-bending roundabout ways in Metal Gear Solid. Solidus screams, "Sons of Liberty, ah!" And we're getting no breaks the rest of the way because immediately afterward, we receive the codec call to end all codec calls. The true purpose behind everything that's happened in this game. The conversation that's now viewed as a prophetic warning that we ignored until it was too late, and our deep dive into... I hope you guys will bear with me because we're about to take a crash course in memetics. I'll be jumping around through this codec call to address certain talking points, but if you'd like to see the full scene, I provide a link in the description, along with links to articles from Brainpickings.org and the Center for Naval Analysis that I'll be referencing. Are you ready?
I've been waiting for this! Who are you?
To begin with, we're not what you'd call human. Over the past 200 years, a kind of consciousness formed layer by layer in the crucible of the White House. It's not unlike the way life started in the oceans 4 billion years ago. The White House was our primordial soup, a base of evolution. We are formless. We are the very discipline and morality that Americans invoke so often.
The AI comparing its evolved, formless, meme-based existence to the primordial soup that humanity has been theorized to originate from is genius and purposeful, and ties specifically to a 1976 book titled The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins, the man who actually coined the word meme. He states that the new soup is the soup of human culture. We need a name for the new replicator, a noun that conveys the idea of a unit of cultural transmission or a unit of imitation, replication on a brain-to-brain level rather than body-to-body like genetics. This, of course, would be
The memes. Show me.
the AI kernel, and now AI Rose, tell you their purpose serves for humanity's benefit, to filter out the massive junk and impertinent data that has flooded the internet, claiming that their goal isn't to censor the net or create content, but rather to shape rhetoric and create context to information, preserving what they perceive as important memories, ideas, and culture to mold society's future. Basically, our history being selectively written for us. Then they start questioning our sense of self in a really snide, condescending way.
Does something like a self exist inside of you?
That which you call self serves as nothing more than a mask to cover your own being.
The AI expounds further that the idea of self is something we came up with as a comfort and a source of strength in tough times. Goddamn, haven't you been punked enough the last hour of this game? And they just keep roasting you until just flat out saying, you're too irresponsible and need to be enslaved for your own good.
Done nothing but abuse your freedom.
You don't deserve to be free.
We're not the ones smothering the world. You are. The digital society furthers human flaws and selectively rewards development of convenient half-truths. The untested truths, spun by different interests, continue to churn and accumulate in the sandbox of political correctness and value systems.
Everyone withdraws into their own small gated community, afraid of a larger forum. They stay inside their little ponds, leaking whatever truth suits them into the growing cesspool of society at large.
The different cardinal truths neither clash nor mesh. No one is invalidated, but nobody is right.
Not even natural selection can take place here. The world is being engulfed in truth.
And this is the way the world ends. Not with a bang, but a whimper.
This part about the internet being engulfed with truth is my favorite part of this call, simply because it's eerily referring to what our modern internet looks like. And we can't ignore that the rise of giant social media platforms have only accelerated and exacerbated these qualities to a breaking point we've witnessed the past few years. Back in 2001, we were in the infancy of virtual society and couldn't foresee that the magic of the digital age, which was supposed to bring us together, would divide us more than ever. Let's not forget that with all the patriots, we're the preserving rulers for your own good talk, that what they're proposing at its core is memetic warfare, which the 1998 book titled Metaphors and Modern Threats by Edmund Glavis describes as actions taken to convey or deny selected information and indicators to audiences in order to influence their emotions, motives, and objective reasoning. Memetic warfare, in other words, is an advancement of information warfare, an effort to infect a population with a viral idea that's beneficial to the governing body. So yeah, while they're laying a guilt trip on us for being, well, human, just remember, this isn't so much about saving humanity as it is just them wanting to maintain power. Then for the mindfuck icing on the cake, remember how I said the S3 plan stands for Solid Snake Simulation? Well, I lied.
The S3 plan does not stand for Solid Snake Simulation. What it does stand for is Selection for Societal Sanity. The S3 is a system for controlling human will and consciousness. S3 is not you, a soldier trained in the image of Solid Snake. It is a method, a protocol that created a circumstance that made you what you are.
So you see, we're the S3, not you.
Great, so not only were we a patsy villain, but we were chosen to take on this mission because of how easy it was to manipulate us into accepting the story provided and carry out our objectives, no questions asked. Oh fuck, he's not talking about Raiden, he means us the player. Nothing like a game punching you in the face by basically calling you a sucker for playing the game. But this whole fourth wall breaking call is why people also see the entirety of Metal Gear Solid 2 as its own social experiment. Metal Gear Solid 2 the game is the S3 plan. And here's my logic behind that. Remember earlier when I said Fatman was an analogy for memes? Well, a segment from an article titled Inhibiting Imitative Terrorism Through Memetic Engineering by Richard Peck drives that theory home, but also adds more significance to us taking up the shadow of Solid Snake in this game. Peck states, certain violent behaviors labeled under such terms as terrorist, sniper, and gunman become immortalized in history, and a small minority of individuals justify their violent behaviors by projecting themselves into the role and circumstances of their hero predecessor. They choose to do this because certain violent acts have become memes with which they find identification and through which they can find justification. Some of these memes depict a macho, freedom-fighting, minority rights and or wronged individual redressing the balance of power theme.
Sound like someone you know, Jack.
You ever been mindfucked before?
I don't think so.
I'm mindfucking you right now.
I can't really feel anything.
See, that's it. That's the art of it.
I'm mindfucking the shit out of you.
It's also just a trip that Metal Gear Solid 2 has essentially become a meme unto itself. It's a game that memed Metal Gear Solid 1, but since then has sprouted a myriad of dissections, retrospectives, analysis through articles, videos, and podcasts. Different views of the game propagating themselves among like-minded fans from all corners of the world. All of us with our individual pieces of the puzzle, but I don't think any of us will ever truly have the full picture. I know I'm sounding more and more like a raving lunatic as this segment rolls on, but this call just evokes synaptic gymnastics in my brain and I can't help it. And then this line just feels like the ultimate Kojima gotcha bitch moment.
Your persona, experiences, triumphs, and defeats are nothing but byproducts. The real objective was ensuring that we could generate and manipulate them. It's taken a lot of time and money, but it was well worth it considering the results.
I think this whole Coda call really makes you take a long look in the mirror. Do you broaden your horizons and invest in seeking out real truth even if it makes you vulnerable? Or do you dismissively and passively just go along for the ride of life as long as your sense of self and ego are protected and you're able to live in your so-called self-determined truth? It's quite a bit of food for thought. But the game's not over yet, and we have one objective left. Since you've done everything the Patriots want so far, they're like, hey, why don't you take out Solidus for us while you're at it too? Raiden is finally like,
Screw you guys. I'm going home.
But there's the issue of Olga's child, and Rose, who I guess exists. I don't even care what's real anymore. In fact, at this point, I'm pretty sure I'm just a figment of your imagination and I don't even exist. But I do know there's one last boss fight. So I guess we'll just keep instituting the Patriots' oppressive will and go murder the dude trying to free the country. Let's do this? Solidus tells Raiden the only way to break the cycle of violence in his life is to, well, kill Solidus.
I am Jack's smirking revenge.
Essentially killing his past in order to live a brighter future. Also, Solidus just really wants to slice you open to get info on the Patriots from your nanomachines. I mean, this dude is determined. Oh yeah, and he vicariously mentions he killed our parents, but that's a minor blip on the radar at this point. Well, if he wants his Highlander moment, we'll give it to him, damn it.
There can be only one.
So after being totally mindfucked for, I don't know, the whole game, our consolation to being the good guy is plunging us into the oppressive military cyberpunk future with one more sword fight. So, silver lining, I guess. It's a pretty good sword duel. There's really nothing too difficult about it, especially since we have body armor. Solidus isn't a pushover, but his attacks are all very slow and telegraphed, which makes it really easy to just circle around him and shiv him over and over and over. Yeah, up yours, Solidus. You're not my real dad. Even during the second half of the fight, the worst that happens to you is you get lit on fire a couple times. No big deal. Again, the setting and music are what put this boss fight over the top and make it for myself one of the most memorable of the franchise. Also, here's a straight up fact you can't deny. For a series that has cyborg ninjas in 3 of its 6 mainline games, Metal Gear Solid 2 is the only time you have a playable sword fight, so that alone sets it apart. But the boss battle theme titled Father and Son is also one of the best fight themes in, well, the history of ever. And images of this sword fight with Solidus always come to mind when I hear it. But you stab Solidus and he falls off the building.
This is where you fall down.
Fittingly, since we start at the George Washington Bridge, we end here at the George Washington statue. But I do wish they were able to keep the original scene, which featured Raiden cutting down an American flag that would have fallen over Solidus' body. But I have a good imagination. Oh yeah, that's the stuff. Then Snake arrives to raise our spirits with some fantastic motivational speeches. Now I know that I've summarized pretty much all the codec calls and cutscenes up to this point, but Snake's speeches at the end here are just too damn good that I gotta show the whole thing. But fortunately, they're mercifully short compared to the codec calls that we've dealt with throughout the game. So I'll let Snake take it away.
There's no such thing in the world as absolute reality. Most of what they call real is actually fiction. What you think you see is only as real as your brain tells you it is.
Then, what am I supposed to believe in? What am I going to leave behind when I'm through?
We can tell other people about having faith. What we had faith in. What we found important enough to fight for. It's not whether you were right or wrong, but how much faith you were willing to have. That decides the future. The Patriots are a kind of ongoing fiction too, come to think of it. Listen, don't obsess over words so much. Find the meaning behind the words, then decide. You can find your own name. And your own future.
Decide for myself?
And whatever you choose will be you.
I don't know if I can.
I know you didn't have much in terms of choices this time. But everything you felt, thought about during this mission is yours. And what you decide to do with them is your choice.
You mean start over?
Yeah, a clean slate, a new name, new memories. Choose your own legacy. It's for you to decide. It's up to you.
I want to stop for a moment. I know I've stopped for a lot of moments, but this line stood out for me so much when making this video that I wanted to do something special with it. and among all the Metal Gear communities I'm in, I asked you guys to describe your first experiences playing Metal Gear Solid 2. I'd like to share a few of those responses with you, because this game is clearly special to a lot of us. So here's some experiences straight from you guys, and thank you Jonathan Phelps, Foxhound Maisie, Hello Camilla, and Lucas Polo for these write-ups.
You're all diamonds.
Best experience of my life. Grew up watching my dad play the games and I was always so captivated. This is also kind of my way of connecting with him. I remember not knowing what to do during Fatman and my dad giving me pointers and telling me to equip the bomb detector. And I think that's an experience a lot of us probably had with the Fatman fight. But this is also just a way of showing how Metal Gear Solid 2 and just the franchise in general has really been a bonding factor for a lot of us. My first time playing Metal Gear Solid 2, I was roughly 11 years old. My parents surprised me with it after a colleague recommended it to my dad. It was my first ever voice-acted game, and kid me was glued to that shit at every opportunity. Otacon was my favorite character, and I thought I was an absolute badass because I could smoke in the game. I'm very fond of my memories of Sons of Liberty, and I felt like the coolest kid in the world playing that game, and I fell in love with the franchise from that moment forward. It's also one of the first video games I ever completed. As someone who didn't play Metal Gear Solid 1 before this game, I really felt like Raiden. Unlike other players, I didn't draw the same direct comparisons to the events of MGS1, so I was in the dark more than the average MGS fan. When I went back and started to play Metal Gear Solid 1, I still felt pangs of Metal Gear Solid 2. Like, this is literally the same thing. Just every moment really felt like, not a betrayal necessarily, but a trick. You got me, Hideo. I think the last two experiences are particularly interesting perspectives since most of us played Metal Gear Solid 1 first. I guess doing it the other way around would almost feel like a reverse deja vu.
What happened here?
Hasn't happened yet.
I think this right here was the best write-up I saw about playing Metal Gear Solid 2 for the first time. From the start, there he is, Solid Snake. I was hyped to kick some more Genome soldiers' butts. Went through the tanker, piece of cake. It was good so far, but the next chapter you're in an entirely different scenario. A tanker plant? Oh, alright. Snake's going to blow this thing up for sure. Then emerged the slim guy in the swimming suit. I refused to believe that this guy wasn't Snake, but then he took off the mask and his hair was blonde? Bruh, who is this guy? Raiden? Okay, I think this chapter will be like Raiden and then the other will be with Snake again. I thought like that for the majority of the game. But no, it was Raiden. Just him. In the beginning I didn't like him at all, he seemed weak and inexperienced, two things Solid Snake wasn't. But as the story progressed I started to like him. He is a good protagonist after all, and at the final chapter when he was with Hal's sister taking care of her and fighting against Vamp, I thought, wow, Raiden is truly awesome. This game holds a special place in my heart. It isn't my favorite Metal Gear Solid, that would be number 3, but it is the most memorable of them all. It was far from a game, it was an experience that I'll carry with me in my memories forever. Thanks Hideo Kojima, you are truly the best.
You're pretty good.
You're pretty good. Pretty good.
And I'd just like to thank every one of you from my Metal Gear Solid groups for coming through and sharing your experiences. This isn't just my Metal Gear Solid 2 retrospective, it's ours. But we've still got a few more things to go over, so let's get back to it.
Snake, what about Olga's child?
Don't worry, I'll find him. Count on it.
People have brought up this line constantly because it's revealed in Metal Gear Solid 4 that Olga's child is a girl. Funny enough, in the Metal Gear Solid 2 novel, they address this issue. Don't worry, I'll find him. Why do you assume it's a boy? Snake shrugged. Or her.
Nice work.
Snake tells us that he managed to put a tracker on Liquid and that he and Otacon have the real disc with the Patriots info on it. They gave Raiden a fake one because they knew Ocelotta would take it from us when we were captured. Jesus Christ, is there anyone who wasn't using us in some way this game? Wow. For shame, Snake. They muse for a couple more minutes and Raiden chooses to live a life for himself and no one else, and wait, is that? Oh my god, it's Vamp. Snake fades into the crowd and leaves you and Rose to catch up. So I guess she is real. But then why was she an AI just a minute ago? Or when was it her and when was it not her? But was it ever her since the her we knew wasn't really her? Raiden finally realizes it's the anniversary of the day they met, but Rose can't be too mad at him for forgetting since she was a fucking spy and we are just dealing with unburying the horrifying memories of our dark childhood. But hey, if I can get behind Hiro Yui and Relita and Peacecraft's fucked up romance, I can get behind Raiden and Rose. It is a nice heartwarming scene after the reality crumbling, identity shattering twist we've just experienced the past half hour. Then Raiden expresses his wish to lead a bright, hopeful life going forwards and making sure to find the right things to pass on to the next generation. We get confirmation of Rose's pregnancy and then Raiden ends the game by proposing. Then we fade out to my favorite end theme of the franchise, Can't Say Goodbye to Yesterday, performed masterfully by Carla White. Yes, this ending does bring a joyful tear to my eyes now that I'm a sappy old existential man, and it's one of the most uplifting in all of video games. And we could just sit back and watch the credits roll because it's Metal Gear Solid and we know there's going to be more, but it just wouldn't do Metal Gear Solid 2 justice if we didn't first talk about the legacy of its protagonist, creator, and the game itself. We all loved Solid Snake before MGS2. Hell, he was the reason most of us clamored to play the game, and strangely, playing as Snake for just a fraction of the time elevated him to what I like to call Deified Snake, or Cutscene Snake. By basically showing up after he's cleared an area, having our ass saved by him, and the fact that he was G enough to take on the woman who can't be shot when we just hid behind crates, gives Snake a larger-than-life feel. It makes you want to be him that much more, especially since unlike Metal Gear Solid 1 where Snake was being screwed over left and right by everyone, this time Snake is the guy with the answers, the man with the plan. In terms of what he represents, Snake is the truth. A true detective willing to sacrifice his own humanity to uncover the truths and fight the evil that threaten our freedom. He's the ultimate cyberpunk hero who breaks away from the comatose society to fight its shadowy oppressors. And Snake would carry this legacy through Metal Gear Solid 4. But playing as old Snake just wasn't the same. And probably a reason people replay the Tanker chapter so much. It's the one time we ever got to play as Snake in his ultimate prime. And by God was it good. Solid Snake is the character that puts stealth action on the map, and is still to this day a gaming icon. But while Solid Snake was universally loved by fans and Metal Gear Solid 1 made him a beloved character overnight, Raiden would have to pay some dues and undergo some changes before being truly embraced. Raiden was actually a more popular character in Japan as he followed traditional manga tropes, but abroad his initial reception was not good. And mainly because it was tied to the question, why am I not Snake? Being able to see a Solid Snake in his prime do badass shit is cool, no doubt. Being the meeker, less skilled wannabe version of Snake, not so much. As I've said, personally, I always liked Raiden, but I gained a much deeper appreciation and fondness for the character once I understood he's supposed to be us, and who doesn't want to root for themselves? But because the overall fan backlash to the character was so strong, Raiden was used as complete cannon fodder in the following MGS3, where he was repurposed as a twinkish Russian officer who was totally the main villain Volgin's boy toy. Not genes, not scenes, but all memes. This clip from the MGS3 parody theater about sums up how fans felt about Raiden to this point. But when it came to Metal Gear Solid 4, Kojima and Shinkawa would pull a page from the Metal Gear Solid 2 playbook, but flip the script. Raiden's new design saw him as an even more edgelord badass cyborg ninja than Gray Fox from Metal Gear Solid 1. And you know what it made players say? Oh my god, I hope I get to play as Raiden in Metal Gear Solid 4. And nope, you don't. He's the absolute most badass parts of Metal Gear Solid 4, and you don't get to play a single second as him because guess what? Now you're an old man and you just get to watch from the sidelines. God damn you, Kojima. Just like Snake Tales though, a few years later we get to be Raiden again in his very own game. Almost his Nightwing breaking away from Batman moment with Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. It's an insane hack and slash stylized anime-esque game which sticks with the concept of memes that Metal Gear Solid 2 addressed, but it's like Metal Gear Solid 2 on drugs.
Don't
fuck with this, Senator!
It's also Raiden embracing his dark past and letting the legendary White Devil Jack the Ripper come out to feast. And this is how Raiden is viewed now. Since MGS4 and Rising, he's been voted one of the greatest video game characters of all time. And I love his journey, not just through the Metal Gear Solid universe, but in video game culture in general. I've never seen a character start out so hated and become so loved over time. Some of you may not agree with me, but I'm a Raiden fan through and through, from MGS2 through MGS Rising. And if there's one takeaway from his transformation through the series, it's that he's his own master now. As for Hideo Kojima, the Mean Gear Solid, Metal Gene Solid, Metal Gear Scene Man, MGS1 solidified Kojima as a creative genius, but MGS2 was the title that had people not just calling him a game creator anymore, but an auteur who, despite wearing his influences on his sleeves, manages to subvert expectations while bringing to light and elevating themes and concepts less discussed and thought about in our hustle and bustle society, but that play a critical role in our everyday lives. Kojima's the fucking man. His stories, characters, and commentaries have had a profound impact on my life views over the years, and his inspirational messages of hope and philanthropic responsibility have made me want to find things worth sharing with the world and passing on. Oh my god, I'm sounding like Raiden. But simply put, Kojima is the only game creator who I'm constantly checking to see what he's working on, and then obsessively looking forward to it until its release. Yeah, I'm a Kojima fanboy, and for good reason, because he seems to have the Midas touch when it comes to video games. Shine on, you crazy diamond dog, you. We fade out as the credits finish to be treated to one of the greatest speeches in video game history, and I'll just let it roll.
Life isn't just about passing on your genes. We can leave behind much more than just DNA. Through speech, music, literature, and movies, what we've seen, heard, felt, anger, joy, and sorrow. These are the things I will pass on. That's what I live for. We need to pass the torch and let our children read our messy and sad history by its light. We have all the magic of the digital age to do that with. The human race will probably come to an end sometime, and new species may rule over this planet. Earth may not be forever, but we still have the responsibility to leave what traces of life we can. Building the future and keeping the past alive are one and the same thing.
An amazing message delivered straight from Solid Snake himself. And if I'm being honest, when I first went back and played Metal Gear Solid 2 last year, this ending, along with Death Stranding's message of staying connected, are two major reasons I even started Fragile Bridges. I'm not on here to change the world, but just to shed some light on things I've enjoyed in life and that have made me who I am. You could say it's my meme to the world. And who knows, maybe in 50 years when someone is sifting through whatever YouTube and the internet will be then, they'll stumble upon some Fragile Bridges and learn about a movie or game they've never seen or experienced, and that's how the strand continues. I also love this speech because it puts the responsibility on us to raise the question of what memes, concepts, and thoughts do we feel are important to pass on to future generations. Can we learn from our past mistakes, or will we as a species just keep doing the same things again and again? Are our ideologies of today more solid than the foundations they were built on, and what can we take from our past to make our present better for our future? Like every theme in this game, it's a lot to ponder. And I'm sorry if I got a little preachy on you, that speech just hits you in the good inspirational feels. We fade to black from Solid Snake's glorious speech and come to the conversation that would lead us down the path to retcon hell. The conversation that would end up forcing Kojima to come back for 3 more Metal Gear Solid games when this was supposed to be his last. And of course, the conversation that would eventually lead us to Metal Gear Solid 4 was a mistake.
Did you find the Patriots list?
Of course. It contains the personal data of 12 people. There was a name on it. Snake, it was one of our biggest contributors.
What's going on around here?
I don't know.
Anyway, where are they?
Well, we were right about them being on Manhattan, but...
But what?
They're already dead. All 12 of them.
When did it happen?
Well, about 100 years ago.
What the hell?
This opened up so many questions that fans were dying for answers to. And we got them to a degree in Metal Gear Solid 3, where we learned about the Philosopher's Legacy, a massive slush fund created by the world's superpowers during World War II and eventually stolen by the US. But Otacon said that they died over 100 years ago, and Metal Gear Solid 2 takes place in 2009. So how is that timeline working? MGS2 was supposed to be Hideo Kojima's magnum opus, his exit from the MGS franchise not with a bang, but a whimper. This was his meme to the world, and most importantly, his meme to his own creative and dev team who he tried to pass on the spirit of making Metal Gear Solid games to. But development issues led Kojima to come back for Metal Gear Solid 3, which, gameplay and character development wise, was a cut above MGS2. But that game still did not answer the question of,
who are the Patriots? Who are the Patriots?
And people wanted answers come MGS4, and it wasn't so much development problems this time around as it was death threats that forced Kojima back into the driver's seat for yet another Solid Snake adventure. And I won't even utter another sentence about that game because Steak Bentley has said all that needs to be said about Metal Gear Solid 4 and its legacy. But MGS2 does have a strange legacy in gaming as well. It's the only game I've seen have such a mixed fan reaction at its release, but the staying power to endure time to a point where it's become an almost universally loved game. It was a technical and cinematic achievement for its time whose innovative mechanics and aesthetics would be the building blocks for the franchise going forward. Anyone who loves MGS 3, 4, or 5 has MGS 2 to thank for the ambition and risks its team members were willing to take. It wasn't just a game, it was an experience. An experiential, existential masterpiece. So that was Metal Gear Solid 2, and I think you can tell by now that this game will always hold a special place in my heart. The first game I anxiously waited for from announcement to release, and I've never experienced the hype cycle like it since. The amount of internet sleuthing I did as a kid and theorizing with friends about what the new game would be like always brings a smile to my face. My first experience playing Metal Gear Solid 2 was with my grade school buddies in November 2001.
Okay, turn it on.
Whoa! And we instantly fell in love with the game and would play for hours on end. Most times dying in very unstealthy fashion. But it was a game that truly bonded us. I look back fondly on those times and Metal Gear Solid 2, and it's probably why I revisit this game so much. To be able to live back in the headspace of 2001 when things were more simple and the commentary of Metal Gear Solid 2 was just fiction and not our fucked up reality. And if you made it all the way to the end here, I salute you and would like to say thank you for indulging me in what's essentially been a Metal Gear Solid 4 was a mistake meme video about Metal Gear Solid 2, the most memeable Metal Gear Solid game with a theme of meme. Like I said, thanks for listening to
The Whim of a Madman.
It's been a bizarre adventure through one of the strangest, divisive, and amazing games of the early 2000s. We had some laughs, some cries, a sword fight, and maybe lost a bit of our sense of reality along the way. But it was good times, damn it. We traveled the fragile bridges that bind Metal Gear Solid 2 and made it through the other side in one piece. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking this strange odyssey with me. I hope this retrospective has been entertaining and eye-opening in some way. However, I am mentally fragged and have nothing left to say about this game. But if there's one thing I hope you got from this entire retrospective, it's that Metal Gear Solid 2 is a masterpiece.
Honestly, though, you have played the game for a long time. Don't you have anything else to do with your time?